It's 6:30 on July the 2nd. One select board member will be doing also tonight. Please stand with allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the United States of America and to the nation under liberty and justice. All right, so statements and anybody in the audience or anybody online. And if you know, we'll move on to number 3, which is correspondence. So it's the time of year where we announced the senior citizen of the year, and this year, as Mendon senior community is Patro. So we just want to congratulate them for putting in these 2 individuals to our county community. We will have a proclamation later for everybody to sign, and we'll be back.
There's a reception from Senior Center does the Mendon Select Board consideration for Sunday, September Senior Citizen Day, and they'll host a lunch for Mendon seniors. With that, we'll announce that.
All right, and this Thursday, tomorrow, July 3rd, we'll have a horrible proceeding at 6:30 p.m. and it starts up at the intersection in the parking lot off of Emerson. What do you want to call that parking lot? That space called parking lot off of Emerson. And it will be walking down Maple Street and ending here at the mall. And I believe there's going to be and ice cream and this. And this is like for the horrible parade. So get all dressed up and come out and meet us on July 3rd at 6:30. And this is it in conjunction with the Brothers American, or is it just the fire? All right, there you go. Fire department union being a make sure everybody gets their credit. So I hope to see you there. Do you got anything? All right. So item is on July 3rd at 6:30 p.m. at the Mendon Town Beach. Will be the 25th annual Public Library boat race, and you can get the mission for that on various town websites, the Friends of the Library, and also on the regular website. There's a link there as well.
And you need to register your vote by the 18th before I'm a judge. So see a lot of you there.
Yes, sir. All right. So the Mendon Select Board has been challenged to cardboard vote, and yeah, we'll see what we can do to obtain some sort of vote. I will say that I will be available, so I might as well give it a shot if the board is available. Otherwise, the board can rise up to it. Unfortunately, we have to do a roll call. Okay, then I guess we'll see you there. How bad is it? That. So, go up and switch the other phone and so and go to devices, audio set, and yep, drop that to yep. It's our internet. Is this any better? Is it? No, it's not. That's picking us up.
So I don't know if you can hear me. Having a lot of trouble with the audio.
He says it's, Mark Bikino says it's better now. So he's the one that sent me.
Elena, can you show? Oh, we can't tell her that. I'm going to tell her in the chat to try to reconnect if Mark's having a.
Yeah, Mark had an issue and he said, whatever you just fixed it. So.
Okay, we'll look into that there. There I am. All right, so. There she is. Okay, cool. All right. We will move slowly into appointments. And so are you going to pull that? You've got that list. All right. So Jeremy's going to share the 1-year appointments list. And we had passed this over last time to make sure that people had a chance to do their training for public meetings. So ethics. I'd be looking for a motion. Can we do this as presented, or do we have
two things. We can do it as presented. The the wiring inspector and the assistant are the two on here who have not completed their ethics training from the last time. Everyone else who was highlighted had, including myself. So those two, I would look for the motion to be exempting the wiring inspectors. And previously, we had a conversation about speaking with individuals ahead of this, specifically the building commissioner, in advance of 1-year appointments. So the building commissioner is here with us tonight. So if you wanted to speak with him, I know we talked about a particular issue with one building project in town, and I was trying to divorce that from directing the building commissioner in day-to-day duties. And I said that is more appropriate of a time to have that conversation during an appointment process. So if you all want to have that conversation or a conversation with the building commissioner, we invite him here tonight.
Yes, you're interested in that?
So do you want to have the building inspector come up to the table first and
Yeah.
have a discussion?
Yep. Sorry, you can come join us.
John, how are you? Good.
And just because we had this issue a few times before the minutes, could you just state your name and your position down, please?
Sure, John Erickson, building commissioner.
And John, you just want to give like a 10-second summary of what building commissioner does for the town, why your job's important.
Oh, yeah, sure. The primary role of the building commissioner is public safety, making sure the buildings are safe and essentially getting people out in case of fire, making sure they're constructionally sound, and secondarily, enforcing the zoning bylaw of the town.
Right, thanks. So, right. The specific thing that we had talked about in the previous meeting was the foundation?
The pouring of the slab at the warehouse at 23 feet outside the prescribed hours of the planning board.
Right, and then I think that what followed on was, a discussion about the statement you had made, which is, look, what we can do is we can bring them to court, or we can influence them to do the right thing and what they had agreed to do. Basically, your statement at the time was, hey,
Yeah, so they had So this goes back to the special permit process. The warehouse over 10,000 square feet required is allowable with a special permit from the planning. With a special permit, with every site plan, the planning board can issue conditions, but they're tough to enforce in any site plan, but on regular one, it's a lot more difficult. With the special permit, you know, the conditions have more teeth. So if we go to court, they're gonna have more teeth than ones, you know, conditions that don't follow the special one. Special permit. So the planning board typically always puts allowable working hours on their site plan approval. And in this case, this company chose to violate the allowable working hours. They reached out to me a month in advance, or weeks in advance, I don't know the exact timeline, and said, can we get a waiver for several days? I said, I don't have that authority. You have to bring it back to the planning board to amend those conditions for a period of time. And if not, you need to comply with them. And they said, okay. They didn't hear anything else until they violated them. Once they violated them, I have basically two choices. Now, Mendon hasn't adopted chapter 40, section 21D, which is the non-criminal disposition, where I can fine them, and they can appeal the fine, or pay it. Because Mendon hasn't adopted that, to the best of my knowledge, we can check for bylaws and check with town administrator.
That would be the zoning bylaw change.
No, that would be the general body, that the town has to adopt it to allow, not just myself, other officials to fine for certain violations. Other than that, only a judge can impose a fine. So I could have brought them to fine them up to $100 a day for each violation, or $800 per violation each day being a separate violation. The other, I would call it somewhat transit punishment, even to go with town council, or from injunction to have the judge in order that you can't violate the working hours. And if they did, they'd be answering to the judge, not to anybody here.
But that's all after the fact.
That
Right,
is
yeah.
after the fact. I mean,
And they could be done and out the door by the time you get around to.
presumably they would be. They kind of admitted they knew they shouldn't have been doing it, and they did it. They admitted or acknowledged it's done, it's over, there's no reason. But they said these working hours were just not. It would take us 100 days to pour this concrete, and what took us 4 days by doing it outside the hours. You know, maybe the planning board wants to consider those hours when they look at a big project. Certainly, this company should have done something to address that, or.
Well, can I ask, were you aware that the hours weren't gonna work? When they put the order of conditions on there? And is that something you would normally, as the building inspector, review?
No, that's the plan, that's a plan was conditions.
But you do look at them, at something like this, right? You should,
Yeah,
but you didn't.
I did. I mean, there's 19 pages worth of decision there.
So you didn't know this was gonna happen until it did,
I didn't know that they were gonna violate the hours until.
because clearly they knew that, right?
Well, clearly because they did it, but the way I looked at it was they were gonna go to the planning board to try and amend them.
And then presumably they didn't go to the planning board because they knew that would either take more time or might get them rejected. And then everybody would know that they were trying to violate the timing, so they probably just skip all that.
Yeah, I mean, they.
And ask for forgiveness later.
Right, yeah. they did.
Yeah, I guess the question I have is that if during this process, when they laid out the working conditions and the hours, the person who was issued the permit or the company, did they say anything at the time that we won't be able to meet these conditions?
I don't think they said anything.
They just ignored it.
I'm not aware of them saying anything. I think that, you know, the approval was a hot topic at the time. They looked what they got for approval and ran with it. And then after that, the company doing the work is the company that get the approval. They're the ones who got contracted. You know, big company from out of state. They signed this multi-million dollar contract to build this place, deliver it by a certain time, and they didn't really have any say. And they're weighing the yin and the yang of the town allows them to do this, but the owners of our company and the owners of the company that were contracted to do the work. There's a lot of dynamics there, and they chose to do this thing.
Well, my question to you is, as the building inspector, how would you prevent this from happening again?
But don't know how it would prevent it. What I would certainly was talk to the town council and work with the planning board.
Well, if it's a big project, because wouldn't it help if you looked at the order of conditions ahead of time, because you're the professional that's supposed to give us advice? And if when the order of conditions was issued, I mean, would you have been able to tell that they couldn't possibly do it in less than 100 days?
I think that's what was stuff in my.
Well, not saying you tell them, but you could, but you,
To advise them, but they.
part of your job is to advise them, right?
That's something we probably have to take with their perspective is on building inspector's role. I did hear from you that something the town could do is to look into giving you the ability to directly fine through adopting that general law. That's an additional, I mean, $100 fine is not gonna kill that company, but at least.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
Per day.
You mentioned teeth. Sounds like the teeth, that's what's missing, are not really present. I mean,
Right.
What kind of fine would actually give somebody pause before they decide to ask for forgiveness?
Yeah, $1,000 fine.
But I also think that,
And
why don't we adopt that general law to give not just John, but I guess anybody in enforcement could then apply fines.
in some, I think, the town council could better advise, but,
Right.
yeah, it would make total sense to adopt it. And from my understanding of cursory reading, at least half the towns in Massachusetts have adopted it.
So we have a bylaw committee that could look into this for us, yeah.
So this wouldn't be a bylaw, this would be an adoption of an
Well,
NGL.
so we could adopt the fees or we can do
The fees are set in the zoning bylaw.
Okay.
Different towns vary. It could be 100, I think there's a maximum under chapter 48 of the zoning act, but you can choose it instead of 100 maximum. So let's say you like 500. Eight comes to 1,000 a month. Don't quote me on the amount. It can per day. Certainly people want 100. I don't want.
Okay, so like any ongoing operation of that type of fine might be able to stop the problem, but a one-day thing might just be that one day
Do
fine.
we need to adopt it at town meeting, or is it this board, or do we need to put an article on the special? That would be the soonest we could do anything about it.
Big discussion. I mean, yeah, it seems to me we don't tend to have many projects this large, so.
Right.
But I think take this as a warning to say, if we get a large project like this, give me captures from posterity and say, are they really going to meet the deadlines they set out for themselves? Right?
But what's problematic about it, if the planning board puts orders of conditions, and there's no penalty for them to ignore them.
Well, it sounds like we're talking about penalties.
Right.
It sounds like we're limiting the penalties might be able to assess.
I also back up a bit, it's probably fair to say that it costs the town some money to bring these people to court in order to fine them over that one day, so the fine is preferable, like a fine that you can apply is preferable than bringing them to court to enforce the conditions.
If I have the ability to find, that's certainly preferable. Right now, I would have to bring town council with me to court. So
Right, so you're talking about
effectively cost. I don't know that,
it's not cheap.
range for some contract, but imagine.
Town council costs us more per hour than the city would be per day.
Right.
But I don't think it works in conditions.
No, and then there are some conversations, I'm sorry.
There you go. But
I had, there's obviously a couple of emails right up there, but I had some, on the phone and in-person conversations with people in charge of the company. And use some very strong language.
Mhm.
Made some innuendos of things that probably can't be pushed, like revoke their building permit. To try and get some effect with it. I think overall it didn't help in this 4-day, 3-day weekend. But there was a lot more there. I put a lot more in that's kind of hard to document than anything is just for.
Well, I think the issue is that once it started, there's nothing you could do. Right, because it started and they weren't gonna stop, and nothing you could do to stop them. All I'm saying is about the only thing would have been ahead of time to know and to have a conversation with them, and just stop them from starting.
All right, so. Is there, yes.
Yeah, I have one more comment, and I don't know if this is possible or even within the power of the planning board, but do they have the authority to issue some sort of bond to guarantee adherence to the conditions? So put up some money, get it back, if you play nice with these very large projects.
They have the ability to require a bond. Not sure, they're definitely outside of my expertise as to what that can apply to conditions. So if you put in a subdivision, they put up a bond, it's going to show that the road built the sign on it. Everything else, if it doesn't, then the town finishes that.
Okay, I'm just curious.
Are you still our liaison to the planning board? Maybe you can step in there and see if they have any opinions.
Would we agree that it seems like to address this in the future, it's more going upstream?
Yeah.
At the beginning, to try to make sure we've got everything I's dotted, T's crossed, any potential.
Yeah, I mean, it does, I think it's hard to know when they're placating us.
Right.
Yeah.
And they were doing it as a one-time violation. I mean,
But they're
they did the
calculated
calculated
risk.
Yeah, exactly, calculated risk, and it wasn't going to go back on them, so.
Just want to correct something I said before about adopting MGL, chapter 21D. We don't have to necessarily adopt the law as I'm reading it. It just prescribes what we can do with our bylaw or ordinance. So we'll get into it a little bit more, and then if it should go to the general bylaw review committee, we'll go that route. I'll involve council because this is.
Yeah, it's not as opposed to declaring statements. Okay. So, all right, is there any more conversation for our building commissioner, building inspector? Thanks for your time tonight. Appreciate it. Thank you.
John.
Yeah. All right, so back to 1-year appointments. So we'd be asking you to create a motion to either pass over the 2 individuals who not have their ethics training, or to say in contingent upon them completing their ethics training.
Well, if we pass them over, they're still in that position until we replace them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I make a motion that we approve the appointments for everybody who has completed the required ethics training.
So that would be exempting the wiring inspector and the assistant wiring inspector.
Yes. Right.
Okay.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, roll call. All those in favor?
Raleigh, aye. Chanel, aye.
Gunner,
Brugos, aye.
All right, motion passes. I'm abstaining.
I don't think the chair has to vote.
I think I have to abstain.
Nope. Well, I don't think
It's
so.
gonna work. We're gonna work on the parliamentary procedure during the meeting. Okay, so that motion passes, and we move on to letter B, which is our heavy equipment operator, grounds foreman, Michael. I want to say the other one. Balagwa.
So, this is Michael Burlock.
Can you repeat that, please?
Thank you, sir. And I'm looking to approval to hire Michael Burlock as an operator grounds foreman. Comes to us with the city of Atlantis Westing, which is I guess landscaping experience, snow plowing experience. He's got a lot of this new grounds position. He has a lot of experience with the stuff, and we're going to be looking for that position to do. So ask that you guys consider appointing him to that position.
Great. Does anybody have any questions, Michael? 20 years sounds significant.
Yes, sir.
We appreciate you applying this position. We're really looking forward to. We're looking forward to more, command and control in this area, and John's looking for more control in that area as well. So we're really excited to have you on board. Yeah, all right. So then I'd be looking for a motion to appoint Michael.
I move to appoint Michael Palacqua as the heavy equipment operator, grounds foreman at a rate of $24.30 per hour with a start date of July 7th, 2025, pending successful background check.
Second.
Discussion?
I'm sorry, that's one, but where are you joining us from?
I don't do my own thing. My own landscape.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, well,
And his background check has to be here.
Awesome. All right. So no pending background. All right. Any other discussion? All right. Roll call. All those in favor?
Bob, I.
July, Raleigh, aye.
Brugos, aye.
You're doing something. All right. So thank you. You're all set.
thank you.
Have a great night. Welcome to the family. All right, Tim Morse, come on up.
Jason, Bennett, Fire Chief. Tim Morris.
Well,
Potential Bennett Firefighter.
welcome to Mendon. All right, so Tim's looking for Mendon firefighter EMT, correct?
That is correct. Tim was one of 3 candidates that was interviewed by a panel of the deputy chief, captain, 3 lieutenants, the human resource coordinator, and actually the town hall intern. He came out on top. He's coming from a neighboring community as a career firefighter. He's been a firefighter since 2018. National Certified Firefighter 1-2. He's currently EMT basic in paramedic school with completion probably August, September, somewhere around there. Fall sometime. We won't put any time, other than before his probation. So, all the pre-hire requirements, including the NFPA physical background check and physical ability tests have been completed. So,
Welcome, Tim. So we've been looking for more firefighters. Exactly one, unfortunately, but Jason will be talking to us more about that later tonight. So yeah, did you have any questions for us? We're excited to have another person on board. So
No questions. Excited to be here.
all right, so any discussion from the board? All right, then I'd be looking for a motion to appoint Tim Morse.
I move to appoint Timothy Morse to the position of career firefighter EMT for the Mendon Fire Department with a start date of July 7th, 2025. The rate of pay will be $27.59 per hour to be elevated to $31.24 per hour upon completion of the paramedic certification.
Second.
Is there any discussion? So roll call vote.
Raleigh, aye.
Chanel, aye.
Brugos, aye.
All right, Tim, welcome to the Mendon family.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Right, so meeting minutes for approval on March 18th, 2025. We're gonna push that to the next meeting because Mr. Goddard would like to review a section of the meeting notes just to make sure it's correct. We haven't had a chance to do that, so we're gonna do that next time. But for June 4th, 2025, I'd be looking for a motion to approve. Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Raleigh, aye.
Chanel, aye.
Brugos, aye.
All right, motion passes. That was super fast. You guys are. All right, so there's no vote, but in your packet should be the meeting minutes from June 18th. Make sure you get any feedback to Katie before our next meeting. All right, number 8, the Mendon Lions Circus permit. So the Mendon Lions Circus comes through Mendon every year. It's a fundraising event for the Mendon Lions. We do. Mark, are you online to talk about the Mendon Lions?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I am.
All right. Well, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you having this on the agenda for tonight. Mark Bacchino, 11 Main Street, representing the Mendon Lions tonight. This is our annual Zabini Family Circus. It's going to be held on July 17th and July 18th. It'll be at the old Fino property at 3 North Ave and also the parking lot at the Clough School. We have 3 shows this year. The show on Thursday night is 6 p.m. The shows on Friday night are 5 and 7 p.m. The Zabini family has already submitted paperwork for their food permit. They've already been in contact with the building inspectors, and we're just waiting for the town's approval to move forward.
Excellent. Yeah, this is always a well-attended event. I know it's pretty popular with the families. With my children as well, when I was young. Is there any discussion?
We'll say I spoke with the police chief about this earlier. He said he had no concerns about the event. It's been going on for years. And it's not the same night as the Concord boat race this year.
And so I'd be looking for a motion to approve pending routing slip approval.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
any discussion? All right, roll call vote. All those in favor?
Morale, aye.
Chanel, aye.
Got it, aye.
Brugos, aye.
All right, motion passes. Thank you very much for coming to join us tonight, Mark. I hope you have a good attendance for your event.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Rob, have a good day. Brendan will be there.
Last year I got called up to play tennis with the clown.
Oh.
See, the circus never changes, only the clowns do.
There's a video filming one song.
Oh, nice, but I have to find that. All right, so, agenda item number 9, common vic application for PJ's at Miss Men's Diner. And so this is, PJ's, what's the name, Smoking Grill. You guys want to come on up? All right, so they're gonna be, basically doing the restaurant inside of the Miss Mendon Diner. So you guys want to tell us about what that means?
Yeah, I'm Paul Rogers, my wife Louie, we own PJ's Bar, we own Valentine. And PJ's Smoke, we go in that way. So yeah, we're gonna be taking over the diner. Pretty much, breakfast, lunch and dinner. Bringing our own type of spin on the food. We'll try to have access to the function room as well. And we're actually, opening up the grill this Saturday. And working with Greg.
So this is the grill outside?
Yeah.
And when you talk about the function, you mean upstairs in the dealership?
Yeah,
So will you be able to cater that, like?
yeah, yep.
Good to know. How many is it that, do you know, with the room seats?
It's, I wanna say 120, maybe, I'm not exactly sure of the number with that. But I know you can also, there's ways to make the room smaller for smaller events.
We'll be having, we just put out the public notice of transfer of a liquor license. There'll be a public hearing at the next select board meeting on the 16th to transfer it from Miss Men's.
And there's anything else that needs to be done, Board of Health, any of that?
Yeah, we've had to put up health up there a couple of times. We did like probably about a month ago, I had her come up there and I wanted her to tell us what she would be looking for because of the renovations that they had done. So we made some suggestions and I believe the plumbing work was probably the most extensive. That should be done probably next week.
Are you rebranding, like, or?
No, we're just gonna it's gonna be called PJ's at the Miss Mendon Diner. I don't wanna take away from the Miss Mendon Diner.
Everybody's really looking to see that open. I know the town has been missing having another restaurant here in town.
Yeah, we're excited.
All right, so, yeah, I'd be looking for a motion here.
I move to approve the common victual application for PJ's at Miss Mendon Diner pending successful routing slips.
Second.
Any discussion? Yeah, we're really excited to have another restaurant in town, so thank you for taking this up. All right, roll call vote, all those in favor?
Morale, aye.
Chanel, aye.
Got it, aye.
Brugos, aye.
Hey, wow, another welcome to the Mendon family, we're happy to have you in town. Thank you so much. Good night. All right, now the moment you've all been waiting for. Jeremy's gonna show us the new town website.
Yeah, so first I will. So, this is our current website. No. It's okay on the front end, it works on the back end. So, it's hosted by Civic Plus on an open source, platform called Drupal. And they brought everything kind of in-house. And it's a lot more powerful tools for a lot of things. This is what we will be launching. So we've got kind of a rebranding on top, colors being kind of blue, white, and green throughout. This does not rotate. This will change through a few pictures as you come back and refresh. You can change them all the time. Got all these positive response buttons here to the things that we think people are most frequently navigating through. One of my favorite things is the chat with the library here, rather than now being a WordPress site, or rather than continuing to be a WordPress site like they are, is within the same family with some inverted colors, so you know you're somewhere else, but it's the same buttons in the bar and the rotating here. We're really excited for it. The agenda center piece is pretty powerful. The calendar piece is pretty powerful. We've got a module for bid postings where we can now do all of our plan holder lists. So we don't have to say, please email me and tell me you've done my plan, so I can send you the agenda with everything together. All our board pages are updated here.
Is that a picture of us winning the card? We didn't win.
The library director telling me.
We did the last time.
So our initial plan was to launch on Monday. We are pushing it back 2 weeks to July 21st. The migrating of some of the minutes that have been posted between certain date now has taken more time than we initially anticipated. And the agenda uploading, while allows us to do more features, is a little bit more cumbersome. And we're having an additional session on that. So we're going to push back our launch, which is good because the library wasn't quite ready. So we're going to push back their launch as well. So this will launch after the week of the 14th, so in the week of the 21st. And then the library site will launch in August. Same URLs, no one's going to have to read navigate anywhere. We'll have to re-sign up for alerts. So we're going to send out an alert to our existing folks that says you have your new page. We're really excited for this. I'll send the link around.
When you say alerts, it's not the public safety alerts,
It's not the code red, it's just go sign up to have the agenda.
Yeah, makes sense. Just wanted to clarify.
And it's not the text.my.gov thing, which I used to send out that I disclosed the other day. That's also something. So we've got a few different ways to reach.
Cool.
So what we're doing now this next week is having each individual board and commission department go through and scrub that page and say everything that should be there is there, right? Launch and be ready to go. We're excited about this.
Every board.
We're doing this. Yeah.
I was thinking about it, you don't exist.
But I want to say, Tom Clark, Ellen Agro, and in his role as facilities and town hall hours, Dan Meyer put in a lot of work, and along with Katie Box and the three of them put in a lot of work getting this from nowhere to here. So thank you all for that.
Yes, thank you. It's very
For intranet too.
Oh, and there's an employee intranet. See,
We just have to put stuff in it now.
so we can use it for HR functions in ways that right now instead of just email Jen, we can have a possibility.
Is that going to be different than a SharePoint repository or something? That's a trick question. I'm just throwing that out there. Okay, so new town website is going to launch in mid-July, and the library site will be in August.
Yeah.
And everybody's going to rejoice in the new finagled easiness of the site. Do we have a way to respond to community question, like if the community, I don't know how everybody's using it in town, but if they have questions, how do they get help?
So we've built in the metrics piece of it, so we will know how the town is using the website. Our joke is that 20% are trying to find either the schools or the library, and the other 80% are trying to figure out if their traffic is delayed. We think that's how people listen to the website. So we'll see if that's true enough. But the same thing, we have contact us buttons in almost every board committee.
Great. Those are going to use.
No,
All right, awesome. Yeah, this is exciting. This is a whole year in the making. So,
yeah, this is funded by ARPA.
right, good old federal government money. Pay for some website, that's great. All right, well, thank you. So we're gonna, I'm reading ahead, the red on this is really calling my eyes. Number 11, which is the board access to Collins Center discussion. So this specifically was brought up by the bylaw review committee, who would like some professional assistance on some of the more complex language items that they might need to write for bylaws. And the question was, you know, how much money should we allocate to do that, if any? And then furthermore, is this the only board that would then have access to that? How other boards have access to that type of expertise if they need it? What would be, you know, how would we do that? And so something that Jeremy and I had talked about was like, well, if we knew those boards needed that, then we should have budgeted for that during budget season. But if we didn't know and something was coming up that they needed access to money, you know, would we take select board money to do that? And so I'm throwing that out here mainly to, you know, I want you to consider other committees, but we specifically asked the bylaw committee to do some complex work. And should they have access to resources if they need them? And like, when should we do that? Should we wait until next year, right? So if you think about like a noise ordinance or solicitation rules, should we just allow that committee and, you know, maybe the chief or whatever to come up with that, and we'll just, you know, yes, no, or should we get an expert to review?
What about the Secretary of the Commonwealth?
I don't know. What about the secretary?
Well, would it be possible if they have proposed bylaws? I mean, I know that it seems like we pass them and then they go to the Attorney General's office. And then
do they have a service that?
Well, my question is, and then they say, no, it's not. I'm pretty sure that there's assistance in the Secretary of the Commonwealth's office, Bill Galvin's office. You could probably reach out to somebody on a case-by-case basis and say, what can you tell us about this? Because chances are there's nothing we're going to do as a bylaw that another town hasn't already done and hasn't gone through it. And if there's anyone who would give you those resources, I know because I've been down this road before, it's Bill Galvin's office. And if you talk to the chair of that committee, since he actually applied for a job in that office once and knows those folks.
How do you know of it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to reach out to Chairman Morale.
Well, I mean, I also hope they're not trying to remake the wheel.
Right.
A lot of this stuff.
Right.
I mean, I hope they get, you know,
That's my point.
Got a foundation.
Right.
And maybe somebody can tweak and you could be, that you could be anyway.
Right, and that's
It's
why,
gonna go to a lawyer at some point.
well,
It's just-
but they have them in there and that's what they do. And rather than paying the Collins Center or spending money we don't have, which we won't do, right, which we haven't appropriated. There are resources on the state level that could possibly direct them in the right area.
Yeah, I think for this fiscal year, I prefer to take a case by case basis for any committee.
Right.
Expenditure that was approved at town meeting. And then you look at professional services line items, maybe in our multi-year budget, Jeremy, to say, we know we have a run rate here, both professional services and start to, much like capital, we start to, you know, bank it so it's available. But I mean, for this fiscal year.
But they have to know what they were asking for, like, I need 1 hour of consulting time, I need 2 hours.
Well, I think that.
Yeah, I mean, they can't just say, hey, I need to find somebody who can tell me if this is right. That would probably be the wrong way to go. You know? I mean,
Right, tell me if my right is often.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my suggestion is that when they have a bylaw that they want to put in place, just start with online resources to see if there's another town out there that has it and how they've written it. And then you could go to the Secretary of the Commonwealth's office and, you know, because it doesn't mean if it's out there that it's right, you know, chances are those towns that have it would probably change it if they could. Right? But you could find out how and what to do it, and Galvin's office will tell you if it's gonna pass muster or not. It should pass muster.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with working with the Secretary of the Commonwealth and things like this. My understanding of the ask was that we have the town council review bylaws.
Right.
But that says, can you do this? And I think this question was more on, is this best practice? Is this how you should best do this? What other ways can you do this? You know, this being whatever the question is. So we'll certainly have town council reviewing this and continue to that on a marginal basis. This is the technical assistance on kind of right sizing things. So I'll look into the Secretary of the Commonwealth. It's not something I'm familiar with.
the best practices, I would hope we're sort of looking at surrounding areas to say, well, it's done this.
Mhm.
And, you know, generally, it's maybe it's groupthink, but if there seems to be a consensus on how a use ordinance drafted, that would serve as a
I think there's varied quality in the bylaws around the towns around us, and so I think that's a little bit of the concern.
So they just expand it out further. And the further, you know, if you head east
Right,
with bigger communities that have been gone through the same growing pains that we're going through now, you know, you can find those resources.
They also make sense for looking at it community as a model bylaw to reach out to the town administrator, the town board. They have to live with it. Is it working smoothly? Are they having issues? Is it?
Mhm. all right,
But that's not to say we don't think about it, just but like, for me, it's case by case, if they're spinning their wheels on, say, this ordinance. You don't come with anything you've seen. You brought it to a head to a point where you say, okay, we really need to go to professional services.
Yeah, the
Maybe
biggest
it's
issue,
well, maybe it's somewhere else.
so the biggest issue is that we didn't budget for it.
yeah, exactly. Well, I think we thought we could do it ourselves,
Right.
and I think we probably can, to an extent.
They just need some guidance.
Limit.
Yeah.
All right. So I'll go back and chat with the chair of that committee. This is something that the meeting to get here to chat about for a little while, so. All right. The building department fees item, we're going to pass over until we get more clarification on the existing fees. So we'll do that next time around. All right. Fire department presentation by Chief Bingman. He's gonna come up here, and I forwarded that meeting to you if you want to join it and share your computer.
Assistance of sheriff.
Between I will remark how sad I am that the audio devices did not work. Why you don't set them up 40 minutes before the meeting. Are you ready?
All right.
All right. You have the floor.
Thanks for having me tonight. There's been a lot of conversations over the years about different things and just kind of working everything together. And the way that I built out this PowerPoint, kind of just to keep me in line a little bit and also make sure that I cover the material I want. I started off with a description of the department, so I'll just start going through it for you.
Elena, can you hear the chief?
I'm afraid not. I was just going to text. I can't make out words.
You hear me now?
Is that any better, Elaine, when you moved it? Muted.
So, I didn't hear if, did Chief Bangma talk again? Because if he did, I did not hear it.
Right now?
Is that you? Okay, yes, I heard that.
Yes, that's me, Tom.
Great, thank
So
you.
This is our mission, purpose, and vision statement for the department. Not gonna read it for you guys, and I'll read, so we'll just kind of breeze through this first part. This is also part of the vision statement as well in our policies. The officer of the department, myself, I'm a career fire chief. We have a on-call deputy fire chief that covers the operations side of it and develops trainings. Fire captain Kyle Marcinkowitz, he oversees the call department and assists with developing training. He is on call. He's career in another department, so his availability is here. We do have the 3 career lieutenants, Craig Burnham, Chris Nudd, and Lenny Morganti. They all have their own individual little assignments within the department. Overall, this is our organizational structure. Fire chief, we have our assistant who is located at the police department. Deputy chief, captain, 3 lieutenants. We have 5, in addition to the 3 lieutenants, 5 career firefighter, paramedics, or EMTs, with the 6th being added tonight. So we're at the 6th for that one. We do have 7 on-call firefighters, 3 per diems. They're not available to work or to be on call, so they work shifts. And 5 recruits, hopefully 4 soon. We had 1 graduate on Monday, so hopefully we'll be getting his certification and he'll be moving up to a regular on-call firefighter. So I just list out the people that we have. Within the department, the on-call people, we probably have 5 to 6 active and reliable that we can count on.
On how often do you call on your on-call firefighters?
I'll get into it a little later, but they are on call every week for 1 week, then off for 2 weeks. Then we have our recruit firefighters. One of them recently got hired a career on another department a little west of us, and he's gonna go through the career academy, so he will be trained soon, so he will be a on-call firefighter within 12 weeks probably, about that. And then we have the 3 per diem firefighters. They are Ethan White is a Northbridge lieutenant. He's very experienced firefighter paramedic. He's very helpful with us working shifts. Zach Phillips is actually a former career firefighter of ours that is still on call and per diem. He actually just moved back to the area, so he's going to be back on call, hopefully. And Jared Plum, he's been a member of the department for about 5 years. He's actually in medical school right now. He's moving back to the area to do his residency. Every time he comes back, he stops in the station, grabs a pager, and he's always available. It's incredible. He stops here before he goes up.
So he loves the work.
Yep.
You probably touch on it, but one question I have as you describe it,
Mhm.
how does a on-call firefighter who's a career firefighter in another department, how does that balance and how does that impact your scheduling and things like
So
that?
I actually have a schedule of all of our career firefighters, calendar.
Right.
Spread out who's working where. A lot of them, like the captain and the deputy, actually work the same exact shifts. So neither of them are available on 2 days a week. It kind of mixes and matches. If they're on call, they try to get others that are available to cover for them during their on call week. So I'm just going to go through our apparatus, which we've done very well with lately with capital improvement. So we have a very, very nice looking fleet. So the engine, it was funded through ARPA, built custom for our department. This is, we renamed the squad. It's a specialized engine. It carries our extrication equipment, water rescue equipment, technical rescue, and rescue task force gear. So it's kind of extra engine company stuff. If you need extrication, that's going to be the first truck that's there. Water rescue, this is the first truck that rolls out. It's very,
Because all the tools are on that.
yeah, we're starting to run out of space. We're adding so much stuff to it lately, so which is a good thing. The tanker, as you all know, we have very minimal water supply in town, so we have a tanker that has 2,500 gallons of water. Our ladder truck, which we added last year with ARPA funds, which has been
pretty successful. It's our second out. We have a second sort of extrication equipment on it. Water rescue. We have multiple saws, lots of brand ladders. This is the brush truck. Recently got, it's actually out of service currently, but it'll be back this week, hopefully. This is a great improvement over what we had previously. We had 1982 International. That was a tanker, and it's kind of a Franken truck that they threw a bunch of stuff together and made it work. It worked, but this is going to be a great improvement over that. It actually carries a lot of water for a brush truck too. So another thing that we need. This is actually the new ambulance that we're taking delivery of next week. The actual ambulance, not a Photoshop one. It's actually the actual ambulance, which the lease will come up after this. So.
Yeah, we've got it for you to sign, like.
This is our current ambulance. When the new one comes in and gets put in service, this will be a spare if the other one goes down. So our station was built in 2001 as a garage for a excavation company. It was purchased by the town in 2007. It's 8,560 square feet and staffed by 2 personnel 24 hours a day. So our career members, we have now 8 positions as of tonight. 2 members on 24/7. With the new position, there's going to be 2 days a week where there's 3 on. Each member works 48 hours every week, consisting of 2 24-hour shifts. 5 of the 7 members are active on the on-call department. The 2 members on duty are responsible for all calls throughout the day, their entire shift. And 99.99% of the calls require both of them all the time, and sometimes more than that. So the on-call department, we have 8 certified on-call firefighters, including the captain. 5 recruits, like I just said, there's hopefully 4, and we'll have a 9th on-call firefighter. They're broken up into 3 groups, and from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. during the week, they're on call for anything more than what the on-duty people can cover. And then they have 2 weeks off, and then just continuous rotation. We try to have at least an officer and 2 to 3 firefighters on, guaranteed to have people responding back, because we never know what everyone's work schedule and personal life.
So can I ask you just a little like logistics question? So if there's 2 people on call all the time, right? When a call comes in and that's an ambulance call, those 2 guys jump in an ambulance.
Yep.
If it's a fire call, those 2 guys jump in a fire truck.
Yep.
And then if they need more people on call are coming in.
Yep.
Who is so they're busy doing work. Who's handling getting people together?
It would be our dispatch. They would
They take
request
care of
for,
the on call.
they tone it, they hit a tone, which goes to pagers and phones and alerts everyone to come in. If you're on call, there's different settings on the pagers that allow you to come in.
And
they
then
hear
once those
everything.
people come in, one of those persons is a leader and they take it from there.
Yeah, we do. We try to have one officer. They have the SUV that they can respond directly to the scene so that they can establish command and start coordinating efforts like that. I mean, that if there's an officer working, their responsibility is organizing how the trucks go out. We do have a running order of what truck goes out for what call in what order. So people know when they come in.
There's a priority already set.
Yep, they're taped all around the station. And still there's questions.
All right.
So this is when we start to get into the standards and laws that we have to cover. There's OSHA, NFPA, ISO, the MGLs, and CMRs. OSHA, as we know, is a law. It was established in August of 22 when the state adopted it. And they are oversaw by the Department of Labor standards. There's a lot of things that are covered within OSHA for us, but the main one is the respirator use. And that's when the 2 in, 2 out comes in. This is the law. You want to read it, you can read it, but it basically says anytime a firefighter enters a environment that's immediately dangerous to life or health, they need to have the respirators on, which is our air packs, accompanied by an additional firefighter, and have 2 trained firefighters outside to go in if they go down. And then they would do 2. So it just staff.
So this says hazmat. Does that include an
Any-
accident where there's diesel fuel on the road?
Not necessarily. it's when you're in an enclosed environment or explosive. Diesel isn't really a big issue, but whenever we would put on the respirators, if you're contained.
So if they're going into a building and needs respirated, they can't do it unless there's 4 on scene.
Correct. There is an asterisk, if there is an immediate threat to life, if we know someone is in the building, we can abandon 2 inch row and make the rescues. But that's the only time that you can go in without additional people.
Is this a federal that the state adopted, or is this a state level regulation?
This is federal, this is the OSHA regulation, yeah.
But you said we adopt,
So previously municipalities were not subject to OSHA
Yeah.
until August of 2022.
So it wasn't a question of adopting, it's a question of you need to do this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there is talk, it kind of died down, a little bit, but there's talk of making a lot of the NFPA guidelines adopted by OSHA, which would then become law. So there's, hasn't gone through yet, but there was a lot of talk last year and it kind of quieted down a little bit. They're going to combine a lot of the OSHA and NFPAs into one. So it would have been.
This is true of any fire department in Massachusetts.
Correct. In, on the CO calls, I checked the numbers that we discussed yesterday. We've had 9 actual CO incidents since March 1st, where there is CO in the building and we have to evacuate the CO from the building. Which, I don't know, it seems higher than normal.
That's you going in with a gas meter and seeing above
Yeah.
normal.
Yeah, anytime that it reads over 35 parts per million, we have to put on SCBA. And that's when we trigger that, the 2 inch for that.
That seems high.
And just from March too, it wasn't.
And these are fires, not like mechanic shops or.
Correct, residences. Yeah.
Interesting.
Fossil fuel burning furnaces, wood stoves, running your car in your garage. It's all things like that can cause a CO issue. And there was a point when they first installed CO detectors within homes that it was 99% of the time it was a false alarm. But it seems like we're trending to incidents more often than.
Those alarms are getting better or people are just calling more?
I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
So NFPA, there's many NFPAs. They are guidelines, they're not laws. But if anything happens in a court of law, they are. That we are held to this standard. The one that I'm just highlighting tonight is the 1710, 1720. It's the deployment of the 2 different departments. One is a career fire department and one is a volunteer fire department. We fall somewhere in the middle. There's no exact criteria of what we need to follow. I consider 1720 the minimum standard. We shouldn't be striving to meet the minimum standard. We should try to get to the 1710 standard.
Is that the big difference? They just assume a volunteer squad has less capability, so they hold them to a lower standard.
Lower standard, the timing, the lower number of people and longer response times. But I'll get into it in a bit, but
I think something I didn't consider until the chief was talking about it is, folks who are not career at the station respond from home to the station before they respond. So the NFPA standard takes that into account too in terms of response times, because folks are going to the station.
That's for the 1720. How many people on our call department actually live in town? We have a fair amount that are actually outside that we recruited to come in. They're within a reasonable distance, but it still takes time once the call comes in for them to respond back to the station, get geared up, then go on call.
Once you have the 2 that are working, respond, can they respond to the station one at a time to go out to the, how many do you have to take another apparatus out?
We don't have a minimum, so 1 obviously, but we would like to have more than 1 going out. That's why we're trying to have 3.
So do we have people that, when they know this apparatus that's headed out on scene, that will respond directly to a scene? Does everybody have to go to the station before they?
The only ones that we let go to the scene are the officers. They have their gear with them and they can respond there and set up a command structure before.
So everybody else has to go to the station
To get the
to
apparatus.
get their gear.
Yeah.
And then they head to the scene.
Yeah. So that's.
So the days of seeing, I just remember all the different trucks.
Yeah.
With their lights on the dash.
Yeah.
That's not happening.
No.
in general.
No. So this is the 1710 deployment standards. So the alarm answering, the alarm processing, that's all handled by our dispatch center. We have no control over that. We have a pretty efficient dispatch center, so we don't have to worry about that. Once it gets into our range is the turnout. So it gives us 80 seconds to get ready. I would say we are well under 60 seconds out the door. Our alerting system in our station is quick and our guys are quick to get into the bus and out. And then per the 1710 standard, the first due engine has 4 minutes to get to the scene. Which,
So 4 minutes, so 1 minute to get ready and 4 minutes to get to the scene, so 5 minutes total.
from the time of dispatch, yeah.
That's unbelievable.
That's what the town is covered with 5 minutes from our station.
So is that 50% of the time? So I'm kind of guessing.
Can you go back to the previous slide with the times again?
Yep.
You're saying it's 5 minutes from the time of the alarm answer?
Yeah, 5 minutes, 20 seconds, yeah.
But I mean, that's sort of the 90%, 4 minutes, 90% of the time. 90% is your target.
Yeah. We are, I believe, I want to say 35%. I looked it up earlier today. The new program that we have, we started it in March. It's very good. I can pull a ton of data, but right now I'm bouncing between 2 programs trying to
Yeah,
pull
no,
data
that's
to
just,
the
I
same.
think it's,
And there's like actual heat maps I can pull up on the new program so I can see where the hotspots of the calls are.
Mhm.
It's,
I was gonna ask you how you made that other heat map.
I typed in, I found a mapping software.
Okay, and you said, what's 5 minutes from
5
this
minutes.
location?
from 8 Morrison Drive.
Okay, that's fair.
So that's just geographically constrained versus, and speed limits versus.
Okay. In driving is one area where we can't really make up that much time. We're very good at making up time the second we hit the air brakes, second we get the tone, but in between them, we cannot make it. Big trucks, smaller roads, we can't really do much with it. So this is the 1720 deployment. We are considered rural, I believe we're in the 320, somewhere around there range per square mile. So we would be required to have a minimum of 6 people on scene within 14 minutes, 80% of the time. For the volunteer.
Which the time seems reasonable, but the count doesn't, right? Is that
If you think about the time, it's not even there.
because you're talking about travel time?
There's places in town that it takes 13 minutes to get to from the time of the car station.
Are you gonna have a slide about the position of the?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then I'll wait for that one.
So ISO is a organization that does a fire suppression rating schedule. They evaluate fire departments to see how insurance companies set their premium. Not all insurance companies cover it or go by this, but most of them do from what I've heard. It's rated on the emergency communications, the fire department, which I'll get into that after, water supply, and community risk reduction, which is fire prevention and education. This is our current score. We are a class 5 fire department. We see 5 and 5Y. We were able to prove that we can effectively supply water outside of our hydrant district, which is 90% of our town. So we were able to get the 5Y rating. Previously, it was a 5/8 if we don't get that. So outside of the water district, which again is everywhere in town, we would have been the class 8 department.
This is how the cisterns installed.
Cisterns, just the deployment of the tankers, the apparatus coming in, and the amount of water we have on our vehicles. So the rating we have, let's go to the next slide. So we scored a 53.99 out of 105. As soon as you get to 100, that's when you're a class 1 department. Franklin, is there any other local? Franklin and Foxborough are both class 1 departments, just.
So it's a pretty high threshold. I mean, you said get to 100, the score is 105.
Yeah. So this is our score. This was done in the rating came out for us in 2021. this was before we switched to the Regional Communication Center, which we share with Franklin, which is a class 1 department. So my assumption is that we will be able to make up some ground next evaluation in the communication. We should be able to get to 10 on that. We'll increase the rating with our ladder, our deployment analysis. Not sure if we'll gain on them, but the training, we should be able to get some points on. The water supply, the system, we can't really get more than that unless we have municipal water supply time, which
Working on it.
working on it, but it's long-term goals. Jeremy found it surprising that we get 3 out of 3 for our hydrants.
I was thinking the same thing. Is that
The hydrants we have,
So that's what matters.
the hydrants we have on the Hopedale system work.
They do not.
With that, there's an inspection and flow testing credit on this that we didn't score very well on, which I would think, Jeremy, we discussed this yesterday, there's a budget to test and flow test and
Yeah,
maintain.
We get assessed for hydrant testing on a quarterly basis from the Hopedale Water Department, so I would, so
Is that they flow tested it and it didn't pass, or is it where we?
I believe it. A lot of this is documentation. So my guess is that the documentation wasn't properly provided.
Okay.
So my goal is to get to us to at least a 4. Hopefully a 3, a class 3.
How often does your department come to the hydrants and actually train them and try to fill up the tank there for the?
Every time we touch the hydrant, Hopedale comes and yells at us. Because they can see that we flow on the hydrants.
Just the pressure drop.
They can see a spike in the pressure and they come to the scene right away. We're very efficient with our initial water supply. We actually had a large shed fire right next to a fire hydrant. It actually confused us more because we didn't do our typical tying into our 2 engines and our tanker. We tied into the hydrant and people got all confused by it.
When you say you want to get to a, what, say maybe a 3?
A class 3 would be
Class 3.
a goal.
I mean, you said over 100 is class 1, so what's your class 3? Is it
Class 3 would be
75?
70.
70?
Yeah. So if we get to a 60 points, we would be a class 4.
So you really got 3 areas of focus then, based on these numbers?
Yep.
And what is deployment analysis? What is that comprised of?
It plays into the time travel, which I'll get into the next. They consider 1.5 miles road travel as the rating for a fire engine, and 2.5 for a ladder. Actually, the next slide. This is the area of town that the ISO considers we have engine companies.
Say that again?
1.5 miles from our station. That red area is what is ISO considers covered by our.
So we'd have to have like 6 fire stations to be fine.
It would probably be 3,
Okay.
but yeah, it's.
On the rating, besides the, setting a standard and reaching, achieving a certain level of quality, is there any other value to reaching that? Does the department get more money from the state? Does the insurance rating go down?
The premiums should go down. We get phone calls all the time from insurance companies asking us what the closest water supply, what our rating is. So they still do use it. We get called probably at least once a week from different places. Insurance companies asking the rating and where our hydrants are from certain places within the town. And we explain our process of the tanker shuttle and our interconnecting the engines and our cisterns, and they seem to be okay with it. So there's that. I got a phone call from someone outside of the range that their insurance company was requiring them to get a monitored fire alarm system because they were not within the range of a fire department.
Interesting. Brenda, did you have something? Saw your hand earlier.
No, I'm good.
Is there?
I know this came up.
Does the situation with the water and the supply of the water give us any pull with legally from any municipalities? Because, we in the past have discussed with Belly tying in there. I know the Lowell's is actually on the Bellingham water system.
Okay.
It's not on the Mendon, because that building was built by the owner of the restaurant in Bellingham and tied into it. And then the farm, the Twin Elm Farm, the other end of Bate Street, going up.
Yeah.
Right, that's tied into Bellingham too, because he was the first person that ever got on town water in the late 1940s, because he dug a trench.
Yeah.
Out to 140, because he had the concrete plant
Mhm.
in Bellingham. He was the biggest landowner in Bellingham. And the story was that he just told them, I'm gonna connect. And different time, because that's where the pipe comes from.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't be difficult to get into that. It might. I'm concerned when I hear that, you want to train and somehow you're getting static from Oakdale, because they do have, supply issues and volume issues. And they seem to be concerned or alerted every time that you really use the hydrants or open them up.
I'm sure we could work with the other towns and get some practice. I have a good relationship with both Bellingham and Oxford, so we could.
Well, it's like Gibson was our town water department, or, and tried before, and it would have been advantageous at a certain time for Bellingham, and then it kind of abandoned. But I don't think this is not an angle that I've ever heard before, and it might be advantageous.
And maybe we can contract for fire hydrant services or something from another
Well,
town.
just the idea of, it's just proof of thought.
Yeah.
Should reach out to Kevin and Vinny. Just try to get that.
You still have 1.5 to 2.5 miles. This is purely,
Google Map.
no, I'm just saying, but this is the insurance.
They use that as the
industry
Yeah.
setting rates. So what you're suggesting is by improving on these types of things, let's say, moving the station or adding annexes or something, you potentially, the community can possibly receive
Yes.
better rates.
Yes.
But this is, so there's a lot of stuff, a lot of similar maps. One's response time, NFPA, in terms of how they rate you. One is insurance. I mean, I understand insurance. but-
Insurance probably has more pull technically than NFPA, because NFPA doesn't oversee anything. It's just the guy.
Right, well, insurance has teeth,
Yes, yeah.
but OSHA to me is probably the premium right now, of the three things you've talked about. Is that fair?
Yep.
And in terms of impact to.
OSHA doesn't have anything with the response yet. Until they-
But OSHA takes a look at the best practices as it affects the personnel, the fire department and the operations. Is that fair?
Yep.
Whereas the insurance side is looking at, we're gonna charge insurance, fire premiums at a certain rate based on this data.
Yeah.
Which impacts the taxpayers.
Yeah.
Right?
So they don't have insurance, doesn't have any direct pull, but they certainly, everybody becomes aware when their costs go up.
Direct.
When we think about a strategy, I just want to be clear, is if our focus maybe is on looking at the department and the operations of people. For me, I'm trying to clarify, I'm leaning towards what OSHA is telling us is needed. If I'm looking at the benefit, and not just looking at one, but each of these seems to have a different lens and a different set of stakeholders.
Mhm.
This 1.5, 2.5 mile view is more about insurance and how it impacts taxpayers and then business owners, things like that.
But at the same time, when you talk about response time, and when you can respond and how many firefighters you need, the more firefighters.
That's NFPA.
The NFPA road, that has more impact on us. The 1.5 doesn't really mean much.
No, but we're talking about a lot. I'm kind of on the first two still thinking that through, because I'm assuming that's where you're going to focus your vision.
Yep.
Okay.
That's a couple slides.
Yeah.
So again, we have pretty much discussed this. It gives us a map of where we can improve our department. It helps lower insurance rates, and incentivizes improvements in our response and everything. Pulled directly off their website. So this is from 2019 until Monday. 2019, we did a total of 712 emergency responses. As of Monday at midnight, we did 547. We are up 15% from last year already. We did have a busy January, so last time I met, the percentage was a lot higher. We've kind of not evened out, but we've gone a little slower with the
But you're still thinking 1,200 maybe? for the
Probably
year?
close to that, yeah. Our busier months are coming up. Usually July and August are fairly busy for us. January was super busy for us this year. It's usually not a busy month. So it's kind of hard to forecast when people are gonna have emergencies, but we are trending up.
It's not correlated to the weather or anything?
No,
Okay.
it's just, random.
Just people.
Do you have this broken down in terms of like a date stamp, time of day? If you were to, I mean, and this is an aggregate total, makes sense to me, but if you were to look at your 547 days of the week, time of day, do you have that cut as well?
I can get all of that. I do have a spreadsheet with, I have the past 20 years, each month, the totals and the percentage increase for each month.
Might be too much information.
Yes, that's why it's not in here. I limited the amount of, I can provide it to you if you'd like.
Yeah, no, if you, this tells a story, then I think digging into it is gonna help you really articulate staffing needs, scheduling, et cetera.
Correct. Yep. We can break down day, time, every type of call, who responds, a certain call, the amount of data that I can pull from the program. So a little bit behind the scenes, we're all hands on agency. We don't just do fires and medicals, we do everything in between. If people don't know who to call, they call us. I mentioned it last time we met that an average EMS run is 60 minutes. So with the 2 people on, that leaves the station empty for a fair amount of time over the years. Because we've done 373 medicals this year so far.
So when you split apart EMS and fire, it's like solely EMS, solely a medical incident.
So
what happens when they combine?
There's 9 different categories within and first the fire reporting stuff.
And you like roll it up to
100s are fires, 200s are ruptures or something, 300s are medicals, 400s. Hazardous conditions, which cover CO calls, 500s are service calls, there's good intent calls, false alarms, then weather related, special incidents, something like that. So it's all broken down into those separate categories. And within those, there's numbers for each one. Like a medical is a 321. An accident is a 324. So we can get down to very, very finite details.
When you look at your EMS and you say 60 minutes, I'm assuming that's from the time of the alarm to addressing situation rather than wherever they need to be.
The time they clear the hospital.
Okay. Should it also, I'm assuming when you get back, there's some work that needs to be done to restock, things like that.
Documentation and restocking.
I'd go end to end on the call time. So if it's an extra 30 minutes, that's actually significant when you say it's 60 for a call, but that doesn't include the replenish, restocking.
That's the average too. If we go to UMass or a province, which we go fairly frequently to UMass, it's at least an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Is that for complex cases or because Milford's full?
Complex cases, traumas, cardiac issues, we take them up to the trauma center.
And that's Providence. Why do you go to Providence?
We are right in the middle of the 2.
Okay.
It's a trauma center with a cath lab. Depending on where in town you are, that's what I got. You can get to Providence within 25 minutes.
I think understanding mutual aid within that population, it's just, every taxpayer here is gonna say, you get that many calls a minute. It's like, no, they actually are supporting surrounding towns based on your level of.
That's correct.
And they support us when you were out of town.
So. So on that.
How often do you have a case? You're on one call, a medical, and you have a call for another one.
42 since March.
What's that?
42 since March, simultaneous calls.
42 tests on it. And in those cases, do you ever have them that they just refuse? You know,
Mutual aid? No.
They just take time to get
It does, and it depends on what we need. There's some communities that don't have ALS.
Right.
We provide ALS. We don't get that back from them. So it's a give and take. We had.
Because they don't have it to give.
Correct. Since 2025, we have had 131 mutual aid responses, fire and EMS combined. We have received 21 tests. So we give a lot more than we take. We can cover our own calls most of the time. There's been, I think it was 9 medicals that we had to call another ambulance since March. Easier data to pull from the new program. Yeah, yeah. And some of the calls, like when they go to UMass, if it's a cardiac issue, they need a stem, they need a certain type of heart attack that they're having, we need an extra paramedic. So we have to call in people, call in a second medic to respond with them. And when they do go outside of Milford or Landmark, we do call in 2 people to cover the station. Try to cover it. It doesn't happen all the time. I would say 50%, 50-50.
What are other towns with really good fire departments like ours doing about dealing with that uneven mutual aid distribution? That's just a product of your capabilities. And that's just how it's gonna be.
We are calling.
That's how it is.
There's
Never
a
stayed.
lot of stuff going on in the background as well. that
Okay.
Jeremy and I are trying to handle.
So some of these result, depending on the nature of the mutual aid, some of these result in a billable medical event where we are then compensated for our time and resources. But
Especially for an ALS event, there's a lot of material that gets used during that.
it's
There's
not quite $1,000 a call, but in that range.
I mean, when I see a lot of these statistics, I say to myself, how much is this, especially at a national level, are based on, county structures versus municipal structures, right? Because it's national.
Yep.
It's much different in Texas than it is in Massachusetts, right?
Much different everywhere than it is in Massachusetts.
See the word regionalized in Massachusetts.
I don't use that, I don't use that word. I'm talking mutual aid. More formal.
Another word for regionalization.
What kind of, what state, when I tell people, you know how they say there's 351 cities and towns? Well, 3 of them are underwater, have been underwater since 19.
That was a new one that I just learned, yeah.
And they still count them as towns, and nobody's living there, there's only fish there.
They still give a mutual aid apparently.
Right.
I sort of, whoever asked the question is like, so it sounds like most of the surrounding communities, we're all in the same boat in terms of how we're managing this. We have the same, similar challenges. Is that fair?
Yes, we have a more stable paramedic situation than some current surrounding communities. We are called for our ALS frequently. From not just communities that do not have ALS.
I just go back and just agree with you on that point. Everybody's in the same boat.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, but it's fantastic what you've been able to put together, you and your predecessor, because there was a time, I remember especially when Milford Hospital used to have,
The paramedic.
right, and they just decided, we're not gonna get 218.
Yep.
We're not gonna do that. And it was, what are we gonna do?
Yep.
And it was a real problem.
Yep. But I'd say since I started on the department, I've dropped to BLS for 8 hours since 2018. So
That's great.
which
Probably a lot
will
less.
play into one of my next couple of slides.
Yeah, you got 10 slides left. Let's keep it going.
Speed.
It's getting warm in there.
All right, so the station location, we knew this was coming, the station and the station location. It was not intended to be a fire station. It was an office in a construction building. It was purchased and lightly modified. They added 2 doors to it and added final vent, which is the diesel exhaust recovery. The living quarters are limited. There is a shower that used to be a bathroom, and then there is 2 toilets. 2 separate toilets. So we have 2 bathrooms and a shower, not 1 bathroom per se. We don't have an issue. We do have female firefighters now. We don't have an issue with, we have single occupancy everything. We have 3 dorms, which we recently converted. What used to be my office, it was the bigger office of the 2 that were there. That is now the officer's office, and half of it is the bunk room for the officers. So there's a bed with lockers in there for them to keep their stuff. And I moved over to the other side to take up less space because
Under like the ladder truck or?
If you walk in the door, I'm to the left
Okay.
instead of.
You just have a conference room.
Yeah, with the training room, I'd say 12 people, or comfortably 12, which gets a little tight during some of our department meetings.
And we'll mention that you said it on an earlier slide, your executive assistant is at another building.
Correct. Yes, that's one of the points that I'll get into. The location's not ideal. It's at the end of a dead end. There's a lot of industrial traffic. If you spend a day down there, you'll be shocked by the amount of truck traffic that goes through there. And if the timing's right, it hasn't been an issue. We discussed this yesterday. Morning or afternoon, if we get a call, there's buses lined up the entire length of Morrison. Back to back. Guys wouldn't be able to get in. It would be tough for us to get out. There's propane and oil trucks coming in all the time. People refuel there. There's businesses behind our station. There's car carriers, dumpster trucks. Who knows what's in there? There's a ton of industrial traffic that goes in and out of there. They like to turn around in front of our station, block the road. It's a tough spot to be in. It's nice for our training facility, which I'll get to at the end as well. I didn't include a picture, but the response times to Southwick Zoo is 12 minutes. We go there at least every other day when they're open. It's a fairly frequent occurrence. For some reason, when we go once, we usually go twice at the same time. It's happened probably 3 or 4 times the past 2 months. It's a strange occurrence, but just noting that the NFPA standard for response times is 4 minutes. So when our station was located right there, the blue is what we covered for them. When they moved it to Morrison Drive, it shrunk our coverage significantly. It shows how more centrally located station would be better for the town as a whole. We could get it somewhere up by Route 16, somewhere, probably 7 minutes for the entire town. There wouldn't be anywhere in the town where it would be over 7 minutes.
Did these take into account the grade of the road?
No, these are just
Strictly miles.
Yep. Travel time. Yeah.
Be interesting to map this against percent of covered population.
Yeah, it's a density overlay.
Yep, because some of those.
And road quality, why not throw that in there?
No, when I first saw this, I thought the same thing. So what's the density? That would be.
Huh?
Road quality.
We'll put little cameras along the bottoms of the trucks.
So now I'll get into the personnel side. We've discussed this in the past. There is a significant potential for burnout with our current staffing model that we have. 2 of my lieutenants, as acting in capacity of union officers, met with the then chair of the select board, Elena, and we had a very, very good conversation. They're pinpointing all of their concerns. So I was asked to include that with this. So every career firefighter works 48 hours every single week. That's 1 to 2 days more than every town employee, 412 hours more annually than a standard work week, and 313 hours more than a typical firefighter schedule. They work many nights, weekends, holidays, birthdays, and other celebrations away with their family to protect the community.
So to address 313 more hours annually, what's your staffing need?
8.
And you're at 6?
Right. Now, that's the time.
Right.
But it'll have to come up during negotiations.
So right now we're on what's a 48-hour a week, a true 48. So that means every 7 days, every firefighter works 2 24-hour shifts. What is more typical in departments like this is what is called a 42, where you average 42 hours. You still work 24-hour shifts, but you average 42 hours per week over the course of a month.
It's 28 days.
Yeah.
28-day period.
Over 2 pay
It's an
periods.
8-day rotation.
Yeah, so over 2 pay periods, you average 42. And so this being a true 48 from a operation, had to design, or someone had, I'm doing it, someone had to design a Mendon-specific scheduling module in order to accommodate this because of its.
So right now it's a 7-day rotation. It's,
And
the rotation is 49 days that it plays out. There's like, it's
7-day rotation versus what is typically the weekly rotation.
But if your career staff were 8 instead of 6, you said,
7. There was 7 until the appointment today. So the
you
7,
want to get to 8.
We are.
we are at 8 as of today.
No, so what do you, so I want to know, very simple question. If you're trying to address, say, the 1 to 2 and the 412 hours, those first 2 sub bullets, not, I think it's a different animal than comparing it to every town employee. I understand what you're doing.
Yeah.
The 313, when you compare it to other fire departments, that's real to me, right? That's okay, that resonates. So I'm just saying, how do we address 313 hours?
So with the additional firefighter,
Mhm.
it can be addressed through collective bargaining and
Mhm.
moving to a 42 instead of a 48. Then it becomes a comp question,
Mhm.
which are both solvable things.
Well, I mean, when we went into the budget this year, we said we're adding 1, which we just did. And I think we even at the time said, well, you'd ask, you usually ask for pairs. You asked for 4, but we left, and then we said, well, let's bring it back to reality. But so you all want to get to 4, so 3 more on top of what we just did tonight.
If we switch to the 42. The reason why they're at the 48-hour work week is because they couldn't do 42 with the staffing that they had.
When you say 4 more on top of what was added in fiscal 26, that would get you.
That would the 3, which. That,
All right, so you mean 11 total.
12 for the 42, 11, yes. I'll get into that in a little bit. Stop jumping ahead.
Well, yeah, no, I'm just sort of, I'm hearing with the one we just added, we could negotiate through collective bargaining a 42-hour schedule, but then I'm hearing we need 3 more on top of that to get to a 42-hour.
No,
Okay.
We-
I just want the net numbers.
We would need 4 more,
8 is the minimum to get to 42.
Okay.
and then we would need 4 more on top of that to get to 3 a shift.
Yep.
With 42.
We currently have 2 days a week, we're at 3 shifts with the 8th position because of the way that plays out. If we added.
So to get to 3 a shift, we need to add 4.
Right, because so that
That's-
people don't always go out.
With 42. So it's,
With
yeah,
42 hours. We would need to have-
which is again, it's a negotiation.
To get to 3 to shift, right, which we want, because we don't want the 2.
We don't want the station empty.
Right.
So this next slide, our maximum staffing is our minimum staffing. Every time someone is out, we have to backfill it with a career member. Which then, with only, talking before tonight, with only 7 people, there's only so much availability for the people per their contract with the minimum hours required off between a shift. A lot of time people get forced into work. If you don't want to work, I'm sorry, you have to work. We have to maintain the staffing for the town.
That is a morale question.
It is. I was at a place where it was the biggest issue there was. It was the junior person got ordered in all the time. And it was a terrible thing. And it's eating away at the guys right now because.
That's worse than it's been knocking on the door.
So there's a rotating list right now. They're good about it. They know when they're going to be forced in. So it's.
And the chief said it hasn't become a problem yet, but I've witnessed it in 2 other organizations where that then becomes a cycle of you're forced in and then you call out and someone else is forced in and it burns them out.
We do not have a sick time issue whatsoever. But yet.
But we want people to be able to take vacations.
Correct. And when people take vacation, other people get forced into it.
Right.
People take holidays off, so people get forced into it. It's-
Impacting people's health.
Correct. To date, the first 6 months of the year, last fiscal year, the firefighters took 1,280 hours of shifts willingly. Monday night, we added an extra 14 to this. We're almost at 700 hours of ordinance. We had a guy that had to shift his vacation a little bit because he got ordered in Monday night to work. So he had to work a 14-hour shift that he didn't want to.
This is a dynamic that's not
It's not unique.
common in other departments in the area.
It is, but
It's not sustainable.
we have such a small staff compared to the rotation, it just eats away. And we maintain paramedic level. So if a paramedic is out before tonight, well, actually, even with tonight, we had 4 paramedics on our staff. So if there's one paramedic that's out, one paramedic calls out, there's not too many people to fill.
Right, so I mean, I think incrementally adding to staff is something clearly we were on board with last year. So I'm just trying to, I think context and comparative views when you make these statements is going to be very important because people can ask these questions. So in a silo, this is one thing, but if this is the reality of departments in Blackstone Valley, and I think we should be demonstrating it, or if it's not the reality, we should absolutely be demonstrating it, that this is uniquely a Mendon problem. Does that make sense?
It's not uniquely Mendon, but it's worse because of the size of the staff. There's.
So a Millville or Blackstone, smaller municipalities, or Douglas and the Dudley, things like that, they might have more like us, but a Uxbridge would have a larger career staff that they would not experience the same level of potential
They
burnout.
can drop down.
Right.
I think that line's great. Our maximum staffing is our minimum staffing. Uxbridge,
They're
I'm
famished.
speaking out of turn here, but
Mhm.
they have the ability to float down if they don't want to force
So
somebody.
if somebody falls off, they're gonna have to fill.
So compensation, just so that everybody's clear on how they get paid, when they're forced in, right? They are getting paid the same amount whether or not
They took it.
they took it willingly, right? So there's no benefit.
No.
Like they just come in, suffer through the regular pay and,
Time and a half.
well, that time and a half might not be worth your personal time.
Correct. There's a local community that is at 3 a shift. And the union is bargaining to have 3 shifts be their minimum. Now they're running into a similar issue where they don't have enough people to work because they're ordering people all the time. There's a member, there's a member that's working 120 hours of overtime in a week or something like that. By a week. Yeah.
But doesn't the budget eventually not withstand that overtime cost?
Because you're paying 2.5 times. When someone calls out sick, you're paying 2.5x for that shift, paying the one person who's out and then 1.5 is in.
So this spreadsheet here, this is actual numbers from last year. 1 through 7 is the individual firefighters, shift hours they took, callback hours, which if there's an extra call, if they're on call, they get called back for extra incident that they're going on. Training hours, we train twice a month, 2 to 3 hours every month, every training. Sometimes they're a little longer, but, and miscellaneous hours is meetings, special, like open houses, coverage, we cover Ashland, the mutually agreement we have with them. We cover Upton recently for a funeral for their retired fire chief. We assist them with their fireworks and things like that. That's where the miscellaneous hours come in there. So the job alone takes a toll on members. Captain can speak on this. It's both mentally and physically. He just got it out of the summer, or winter, had back surgery from loosely job related. It wasn't actually. Wasn't on the job, but it was. The impact of the compounded impact of the additional hours, the ever increasing call volume for the 2 guys working, it just reduces the time that they can mentally disconnect from the job. They're always on. They're always focused on the job. They're always doing something. The officers are on call. If they hear a call during the day, they come in because they're dedicated to the community. The guys, they'll do anything for anyone in this town. It's just starting to wear on them. I've had members tell me that they have been looking at other jobs with more people, less pay. And I brought this up to Jeremy. He was surprised, but it's not always about the money. It's about the work environment and
Quality of life.
the people you have with you. I left Uxbridge, took a cut in pay. We had 2 a shift in Uxbridge when I was there. Went to Bellingham with 6 a shift for a cut in pay. Because more people, it's safer. You roll out the door with 5 other guys instead of 1 other guy. The volunteer mindset across the country is gone. No one wants to volunteer. And you guys are volunteering here. But not many people want to volunteer to do things anymore. And the demographic of this town, it's not conducive for a call department, for a large call department. The people that live in this town work jobs to pay for the houses that they can afford in this town. And they don't want to work as firefighters. The Collins Center, the organizational study did bring it up, the transition towards they called it a professional department, but I consider whether you're career on call, you're a professional. They mean it more towards a career department because we're in a crisis. It's not just us either. The call departments across the state are in a crisis. No one wants to do it. So it's getting to the point where we need to start moving towards better staffing the career. So this is my vision. It's not year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's vision by the time I retire. Probably even. One of the big things, the executive assistant, I'd like her at the firehouse. Right now, there's no one there if they're going to call.
You have room for it?
Yes, she was there for a short period of time before the new police station was built. That would take an additional staffing for the police station, so that's why it didn't occur this year.
That would include, I've spoken to the police chief about this as well. That would likely include a request for an additional administrative assistant in the police department to backfill the role that the fire executive assistant currently does there. So it wouldn't be a 1-to-1 replacement. It would probably be a different level role, but it would include that.
There's a lot of back and forth. I'm on the phone with her all the time. I'm down here a lot. Bringing paperwork back and forth, just signing things, meeting about the budget and everything. She's incredible. So she's great to have, but it's not
Inefficient.
overly efficient to do. Another thing that would, step 2, again, not in any order whatsoever, a day shift administrative position, whether it's a fire prevention officer or deputy chief or a deputy chief that does fire prevention, something along those lines. Right now, our fire prevention officer is one of our lieutenants that works on shift. So 2 days a week, he covers the fire prevention aspect, which is a lot. Our code book is, I'm sure it's big, and trying to stay up to date with that, it's tough and staying on top of it, and it's inconvenient for the community too, because they have to wait.
You need to sell your house and you're waiting on a firefighter who doesn't have time.
We've been trying to transition the other lieutenants to fill the resale, because it's not just the smoke detector inspections, propane, underground storage. There's many things in the fire prevention realm that we don't even come close to touching, that we could permit, we could bill for inspection. There's a lot we could do along those lines.
And it's resulted in sometimes duplication, sometimes inefficiency or omission. It runs the gamut with the Board of Health too. So the Board of Health has large enforcement abilities, and sometimes that can or does exist within the fire department regulations. Sometimes they put something in that's either less or more restrictive than the regulations. And if we had a fire person dedicated to this, I think that would streamline that inspectional piece.
And then the next one is 3 per shift, which the 11 or 12, depending on the 42 versus 48, I added those in there. This would, if there was a fire in the town, they would roll out the door with 3 people on that. Right now, they roll out with 2 people. Someone has to run the pump and someone has to put out the fire. It doesn't, we typically would end up abandoning the pump. Their computers, they should work well, but leaving it and going in, and the next pump operator coming in on the second engine would take over that. So a third person, we would have 2 people who fight the fire immediately. Whereas right now, it's the driver has to do everything, getting the pump primed, everything, putting the air pack on, then be ready to go. So it's very inefficient. And with the NFPA 1710, they say 4 people is an engine, and I understand that's not.
It's not unreasonable, given the complexity of the job.
And that's for a simple, I meant to add a spreadsheet in here, but for, I think it's 16 minimum initially.
Low hazard.
Yeah, but a low hazard fire, 16 people are required, bare minimum, to accomplish all the.
We're not really getting anywhere close to that.
We do have mutual aid coming. Our mutual aid is good when we call for it. Most of the time it comes. But everyone
But that's
else
not
is,
consistent.
everyone else is just as busy as us.
Right.
So there's nothing saying, like Hopedale and Upton, when we had the feeds and needs fire, they couldn't provide the tankers that we needed because they were also busy. It was delayed, which caused us to have more tankers. That's why there's tankers from Norfolk County here. But
So when you say 3 per shift, 3 on an engine go out, and then you talked before about 2 in and 2 out being the OSHA standard.
Yeah.
If it's a day shift, you count towards one.
yeah. The incident commander counts as one of the trained firefighters.
When you say 11 or 12, 14 or 16, 18 or 20, that has to do with 42 versus.
That's the. For a shift, we would be able to staff our second units, have it out the door immediately with on-duty people. I don't plan on having our second ambulance in service because right now, if the first ambulance is out and someone calls for an ambulance, someone would now have to drive from home to get in the ambulance and go, when we could have Hopedale or Uxbridge, they're just as quick. So it's little inefficiencies with that, but that's also pulling from them when they're just as busy as us, so. Then 5 a shift, it's, seems like a lot, but I believe I shared an article last year. It was Stockton Tengo Fire Department. It's a very similar structured organization to us. They had I think it was a double fatal fire because they had 2 people on in the call department coming in, and it's just everything stacked up on them. Where if you have 3 people on an engine dedicated to an engine, even if the ambulance is out of town, you're still going to have a fire truck ready to respond.
Do you have that type of information, like the effect on, life and well-being for every added staff member? Is that something that these types of calculations are done?
There's efficiencies within the company size that I definitely know that we could get.
That's it's like a real number that the town can chew on of more lives saved, more like heart attacks is a great example. If you can get there, you can pretty much put that person back to normal if you can get there in time. And adding staff helps.
That is a manpower intensive.
Right.
That would take minimum 4 to 5 for a cardiac arrest. A lot of stuff going on. You're basically acting like a doctor in the field, doing compressions, adding medications,
right?
Arrhythmias, you shock them, reading the cardiac monitor. So there's a lot going on. So more staffing is always better. I understand 5 a shift is a lot for this town right now, but for the future, we're getting busier and busier, and we don't have the power to rely on.
Can you provide comps of surrounding towns for the 3, 4, 5 per shift, just to understand who in the area is staffed at these levels?
I can get that for you. I have a Google form that was supposed to be sent out within the district that never got sent out, but I will send it out myself. Get that done.
I mean, I understand regionalization is not necessarily a popular term, but I think about the fire prevention piece. Are there roles here that can be shared, similar to what we've done in other departments?
Meaning,
well, on fire, you mentioned fire prevention in terms of doing inspections, things like that. And it's sort of built into one of the lieutenant's jobs, I think you said.
Yeah.
But if other local fire departments are doing something similar, is there sort of an IMA approach where we can actually have an inspector that could be, rather than staffing our
fire inspector?
Yeah, something like that. I mean, rather than a regional fire department, I'm saying some role sharing,
They, not unofficial, but I communicate all the time with the fire prevention officer and not going to, if I have questions and my inspector doesn't know the answer. I had that role in Bellingham for 30 years. I was the fire inspector. So I understand where it's coming from. And Bellingham has 2 inspectors on during the day. Uxbridge has the deputy chief that is commercial, then a dedicated fire prevention officer.
So you're saying fire prevention is a full-time
It-
role
yeah,
in many communities?
many communities.
But it's got lieutenants who are doing it here as part of their job?
Correct.
One lieutenant.
One
But-
lieutenant with it.
But I'd also say.
The other 2 are trained to do the basic inspections.
But these are the volume driven, right? The reason to have 2 in say Bellingham is if there's a lot more volume.
Yep.
So when you think about being full-time, it might be full-time if you look across Mendon, Millville, Blackstone, just throwing out names. My point is to go where you want to get to with this, which I support, we also get it creative.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. Yeah, I understand that. This is not.
Is doing less part of that? Like you said, I can't remember the word you used, but you said you're essentially like a multifaceted department where you respond to anything. You know, anything that somebody calls you for. And it's responding less to I know it sounds silly, but like responding less to
It's training.
you know, non-fire, non.
It's hard to tell people though.
I know it's hard to tell people no, but like Mike was saying, maybe we can take that burden off of the fire department and move it to some other place in the town. John's shaking his head like, I don't want to take any fire requests.
So at my other jobs, the fire department was the people that the town went to solve the problem.
You're like the handyman.
The highway department, I said this the other day, the highway department picks up some of the slack in this town. They do a lot. Where we don't have to do all of it. So if someone calls, it's their emergency. They think it's an emergency.
So our internal mutual aid, John's department.
John and I work very
If
well.
they're all
together.
doing their
Communicate.
best.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Most of the surrounding communities have an administrative person, whether a fire prevention or a deputy chief. Work. Sometimes. So that's the vision, the future. I understand it's not right now. That's the goal where we can slowly work to get to.
But I think that's the key. It's not the end state, it's the future, but the work starts now.
Yep.
So,
It
I look
already
at
has.
Jeremy and say, we're thinking about multi-year budgeting, Jeremy.
Yeah.
We gotta roll this in, right? If we intend to do it. So
Yep.
it's real right now. in my mind.
So this is kind of tied in. I might skip this slide and come back to it after. This is tied into the next agenda item. So in closing, the department we've done very well with the capital improvements. Our equipment is very good. I have no complaints. We're investing in the future for our SCBA. We've been great at the capital side. We need to just start focusing on the personnel side to build that follow. I consider us the town's insurance policy. The more we invest in our insurance, the better the town is overall. Like I said, our members are willing to risk their lives for the members of this community, but they're starting to get spread to them. Every improvement at the fire department, it's a direct impact on safety. That's the presentation, and I'll go back to this one.
Just a question.
Yep.
You know, when you think about the people and morale, things like that, there's one thing walking out of this discussion, you'd want to say, this is the one thing we need to focus on more immediately. What would it be?
The personnel, they're getting spread too thin. Some of our best employees, it's everywhere. The most dedicated people burn out the quickest because they prove they're reliable. You want to. So the most
It's a
reliable.
self-fulfilling promise.
Yep.
Burnout is predicted.
Yep.
Yep, we have a similar problem in IT.
Yep.
We're not saving lives, but we do work a lot. All right, so is there any other discussion on the presentation? Because then we can move on to talk about the discussion of on-call firefighter rates.
I just want to thank you. It's great. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for all the effort you put into the presentation. It's very clear.
So the
Yep, so let's
on-call,
move on.
fire department. They don't get paid well. $16 an hour to be a firefighter the rest of your life. It's not on par with other surrounding communities right now either.
It's the last time that's been updated.
We get slight bumps, percentage occasionally every couple of years, but it switched to this in 2019 when Chief Castle came. Prior to that, it was a stipend that everyone got every month, whether you showed up.
The stipend, is that for anything, or do you also pay for equipment on top of the stipend? Like
The
this,
turnout gear, everything's provided to them, short of the
right, so the
t-shirts.
stipend's just extra salary.
Stipend is their pay.
Yeah.
Right now, it's the hourly rate, the stipend is basically retaining them for the weeks where they don't have calls. They don't get paid an hourly rate to go on the calls because they're. Doesn't happen often where they don't go a week without getting a call, but even then, it's $16 an hour. I did make it a 2-hour minimum, so it would incentivize them to come in a little bit. It helped a little bit initially, but it's faded off. It's still coming in the middle of the night. We reduced the amount of this different calls. We reduced not calling the call department. Like the CO calls, a lot of times previously, they were false calls. So by the time they get out of bed, drive to the fire station, put their gear on, they're canceled. And it's
Not worth $32.
it's not worth it. So the pay scale that I'm proposing, I did budget this year's budget with this. Jeremy, I think this conversation at the very beginning of the budget season, it just slipped through getting the official blessing from you guys to move on. Right now, you're a firefighter, captain, deputy chief. That's the pay rate. If you work a shift, if you're a paramedic, you get paid this rate. If you're an firefighter, EMT, you get paid this rate. So it's all over the place. So I bring it together. If you're a firefighter, EMT, this is your rate, whether you work a shift or you come back on call back.
Because we're paying for your expertise at that point.
Yeah. They put in the time to train to get to that level. So they should be compensated for being an EMT. The recruits are non-trained. They don't have their certification yet, so they are working towards it, which we added this, I want to say last year, we added the recruit position. Prior to that, you were not on the department until you received your certification. I think the recruit position has paid off very well. Once we get the people in the door, they don't.
Yeah, because you're part of the club.
You become part of the family. Everyone has latched on and they are gung ho. We were trying to get the in-house training academy going. It was going to be probably $25,000-$30,000 to train our people in-house at our station. So we're trying to get it to work, trying to whittle down the budget to make it work. And while we're doing that, guys just started saying, I want to go to the academy. Once they got in the door, they came on because we're going to do the in-house, but now they want to go to the academy. We've had 2 graduate, 1 is in the academy in October. So we're getting people going through the Mass Academy. So some of them are EMTs and they come in and work as EMTs with us and they're not firefighters yet. So that's why there's the difference in they got $1 extra over their recruit rate. So.
And the recruit rate is minimum wage. Massachusetts minimum wage is $15 an hour.
So it's very detailed breakout in this table. Do those align to career firefighter grade levels at this point? Does that make sense?
Yes, they do not exceed the career firefighter.
No, not the amount. I'm saying like the title and look, something about the call and center study.
Yes.
I just want, part of me says, is this even included? Was this call firefighter?
I don't believe there was a call.
Okay. But then what I expect is that this matrix needs to align to whatever job grade level.
These are the jobs that exist with it.
Yeah, so in the fire department, we've got, you can see here kind of how the string of titles are. There's firefighters, lieutenants, captains, deputies.
Yeah.
And then you bolt on EMT, nothing, or EMT and paramedic.
Right, as
So
long as these align
kind of
to
frank, I don't
people
want to say
with
frank,
career levels.
Yep.
I'm good.
modular
Yeah.
job descriptions. Yeah. Exactly the same way as we
We have our job descriptions with our policies. This is in line with that.
Is the proposal continuing to keep the annual stipend or is it supplanting?
It is not. We're doing away with the annual stipend, which gives me a little less leverage to say, why haven't you been showing up on your call weeks? But I think it helps a little bit. If they come to every training that we require, it will make up for the, I did the math at one point, it equals out to the stipend if you come to the training, even with, there's $16 an hour for that.
That's basically what I planned.
Yeah, they're not losing money. They're gonna do better and be more incentivized. And you get $125 a quarter. By the time the taxes come out of it, they're fairly reimbursable for them. So it really hasn't been a big leverage point to keep people coming on call.
So if we were to look at your 3, 4, 5 on a shift proposal for career, how does it impact your career, your on-call staffing numbers? Does it reduce it? Does it change it at all?
I don't think it would really change it. I don't think there will ever be a point in this community where we have a 100% career.
Never say no.
We will rely on, I was in Bellingham.
But
I felt we
you
still
would think there'd be sort of some leveling of needed resources for increasing the career side, your on-call. Need for on-call would be less.
The amount of calls that they would get called back.
Right, maybe not the number of people.
Yeah.
But this is
Correct.
telling me they get paid for when they respond.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
So that you would see sort of.
And I don't know if you have the final, but I budgeted last year to have a third person during the day within our call budget. 8 hours a day, every weekday. And I want to say we're giving back a significant amount.
I was gonna ask, are we?
Because people don't take the shifts. There's not, even with the participation for everything, calls, trainings, and per diem shifts is not.
Is this an informational discussion or is there gonna be a vote on this
There's gonna be a vote.
tonight on this?
It's about
There is.
the salary.
For the,
Changing this?
Be on call.
the on-call salary.
I don't think I'm prepared to vote on this. And I would say that only because we have the call center, the call-in center study. Anytime I see adjustment to pay scale, I don't care who it is. I hesitate to do it when we're close to getting information. Is that fair?
Yeah, these aren't in the, one of the things Collins Center cautioned us on 2 separate things. One, that police and fire are difficult to put into general government employee studies. And the second was about more bespoke positions and it being difficult to find comps within our area. So we didn't include call firefighters.
Understood, but I also heard that we're below surrounding communities, so we've got some still level of comp, which is why we're doing this, right? And to me, about adjusting pay scales from a budgetary standpoint, we need to understand the full picture before we start making decisions on certain portions of the overall budget. That'd be my concern. And this is the first I'm seeing it, so I'm kind of like, okay,
What's the proposed number?
what's the budget impact?
Did I hear that the budget already assumes this?
Budget, yes. Yes, it did.
I budgeted
Yep.
with these numbers, which I think it stayed around the same as the last year, correct? Let's see, I'm pretty sure.
So, but no one feels there'd be anyone who would sit back and say, why are we adjusting that group while we're being told to wait and collectively bargain based on a mutual study that's underway.
That it sounded like the answer to that was that the mutual study wouldn't have this information in it.
Yeah, but we're still adjusting a pay scale. So you would think, if we think no other town employee is gonna look at this and say, hey, why are they getting adjusted? And we're still waiting, and how does that tie to the data we're gonna get back? I would hesitate to do anything until, I'm not sure what the timeframe is right now.
Yeah, so it was going to be, talk about my administrative report. We're in
Sorry.
draft we're in draft 2 from the Collins Center, which is our final ability to kind of add comments back to that. So I imagine by the end of July, we'll have a final study from the Collins Center. These folks don't have a collective bargaining unit. They don't have individual contracts. It's similar to something the building inspector will likely bring for the next budget season about building inspector rates. And they don't fit the same mold as other positions in town. They're not full-time and fully benefited. They don't have like I said, an agreement outside of that. I get the internal parity piece, and I'm really sensitive in a lot that I do that I doesn't make sure that one group is singled out or not. So I think what would be informational if we're not comfortable voting on this tonight is to line up the current firefighter pay scale next to it. Get some information on what this was historically, right? Because folks have in other positions have gotten COLAs over the course of contracts. So
has the call firefighters rate of compensation been increased annually in the past? Or has it been static?
I believe it's been static the past 2 years.
Can you give me what's the name of a call firefighter?
Yes, minimum, I could expect them to get a COLA.
Right.
Right.
If they did, that's the question. Because I have some experience with this. Having been a part-time public safety official, sometimes it didn't get adjusted. So they're not in the contract. So the question would be, in the last 24 months, have they had any kind of an increase?
Yeah, there have been COLAs. So
there has been a COLA.
Yeah, so 15, 30,
It went down.
30 cents, 1623 to 1655.
Oh,
This was in a down position. Yeah. So. Yeah, 1.5% COLA in 2023. So the last 2 cycles. The last cycle when folks got a 4% COLA, firefighters got 0. And when the cycle before that, the last cycle where folks got a 3% COLA, didn't get anything, 4% COLA, didn't get it. They got 1.5%.
And
Which was 20
what
cents.
did you budget? How did you, what have you figured in there that's available?
These rates.
Yeah, but sort of the net amount, I'm just wondering if, based on the budget, do we, at minimum, I'm not sure why we wouldn't have given them the same sort of benefits we gave every other. Because we have plenty of employees that are not, they're contracted, but they're not collectively bargained. We said, well, they get the same COLA.
So we didn't.
Well,
Firefighters didn't.
but
You should have.
when we say the firefighters, remember what they don't call.
That's what that's what I.
Yeah.
That's it, right.
No, but I mean, to me, that's a question of being fair, not necessarily
Right.
adjusting. It's adjusting for the right reason without a market adjustment.
So let's see.
Yeah.
7.
I can get behind that.
We have
You can get behind the 4%.
Well, just, I mean, I'd say,
This particular table.
well, I would say some adjustment for COLA. If they got 0, that doesn't seem to be fair.
Yeah, they got
got
a
one salary, it's 3. Zero, we must have 4.
If it's in the budget,
So the COLA for if the COLA, if they got, so on 7/1/23, or sorry, 7/1/22, the rate was 16.23. And then we're saying we should have gotten what's the COLA in fiscal year 24? Do you remember?
You're sure it's 3%.
no, it didn't.
The last,
2, 4, 3.
the last year of the last contract.
2.
I'll let you say too.
So we have a.
So it'd be
firefighter.
It would be 1775 if it followed the same COLA.
We have a call firefighter EMT that is on department, but also in Blackstone. He makes $31 an hour going to.
So can I make a suggestion? We take this, so table a vote, take it away to understand what if anything we could do just to, from an equity standpoint. But I wouldn't do a market adjustment completely out of line of the market adjustments we're going to discuss.
I think that's fair. I think the quick equalizing vote would be catch them up to speed from the July 2022 rate with the rest of the folks. And then the second step, once we start the collective bargaining piece with everybody else, is that the next vote would be the market adjustment piece.
And I would just, I mean, the equity in the sense that go forward. I'm not sure I'm looking to necessarily figure out what it would have been 3 years ago had they gotten cold.
Yeah.
I would bring them up to speed for go forward
yeah.
in 26.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
So, so those numbers aren't gonna match. Right? So,
Do you mean the chief's numbers here and the numbers through that exercise?
yes,
Yeah.
yes. And that exercise number is gonna be slightly less.
Yeah.
So, when would you want to commit to the second piece of that? You're saying post-study, so you're saying August, September, we would have that discussion, and then right now they would get that 4% COLA. That's true. That's
What I'd say is, let's see what the numbers look like. Maybe for the next, can we do it for the 16th? That's our next meeting, right?
Well, is 4% enough?
So, they missed out on three, well, we're part of one COLA cycle. And again, I just looked at the rate of one individual firefighter. We don't have tables for these things. We have individuals. So, the last year of the previous contract, where if we're saying everyone got a 2%, the firefighter rate went up 1.3%. And then this contract cycle where rates went up 4% and 3%, that rate has not moved.
And I would say this, Jason, to your point, I would say what I see the proposed pay scale provided by the chief is sort of the market adjustment that you see is, and since call centers not give us, let's see how far COLAs take us and what the differential is to the proposed. And then we can work that in terms of how do we work in every other market adjustment from a budget standpoint.
To continue with the stipend the way that it currently is.
With just the COLA, I would continue with the stipend.
Yeah, I wouldn't take it. I'm not gonna take anything away, that's for sure.
Fair, yeah. that's
Yeah.
fair. And I just think that my assumption is that within what you've already budgeted this year, we can probably manage the COLA without a budget impact.
Certainly,
Yeah.
without that.
Right, so, and then we can figure out, but we don't have to necessarily wait on a market adjustment. I just want to make sure we understand with this market adjustment, how that plays against other potential market adjustments. This is probably funded because you budgeted for it. And everything else has to be collectively bargained, and we have to figure out negotiations and all of that moving forward. But as a board, we also have to look at market adjustments, saying, as a whole, this is where we're targeting being. We want to be here.
So you're proposing that they keep the stipend, catch them up on the COLAs, and we give them a market adjustment within 60 days.
I didn't say 60 days.
Well, I'm saying 60 days.
Yeah, I'm saying, I'm not putting a time frame on market adjustment until we understand what call, if call center comes back in November, but they've been known to.
You know what, no, but that doesn't matter, because this is not gonna be in that Collins Center.
It
So we can do
matters.
our own thing within 60 days.
We could, but I would hate to do a market adjustment for one population when every other population is pending the Collins Center, and it'd be much more.
How long could we possibly wait for the Collins Center study?
I believe we'll be done and have a finalized report by the end of July.
Because I agree with Mike that,
So that's 30.
like
days,
previous
60
things,
days.
we shouldn't release the select board from being bound to solving the problem.
Right. The only reason we haven't solved is because we're waiting on the Collins Center. We don't need to wait on the Collins Center because we have the ability to do it within the fire department. So I would say we can adjust the COLA, catch them up on the COLAs now, and then set the deadline for some 60 days to come up with a market adjustment. And I think you have to give that call department that promise.
Well, the firefighter EMTs get paid as firefighters. The call department pay rate right now, it's firefighter, captain, lieutenant captain, deputy. There's no They don't get compensated for their EMT, so that would be off the table.
I think we could back.
So this
into
is
that.
more detailed than the career breakdowns, is that right? You got more variations, permutations here?
Yes, and the career members, if there's an EMT rate and then there's an hourly rate added to there for paramedic. The career members are only firefighter EMTs or firefighter paramedic, they're not EMTs.
So one thing I want to make sure, when I say wait on the call center, it's not wait for negotiations to be completed and agreed to from a collective bargaining standpoint. It's, let's see what
You want the knowledge.
We're 10 months.
Right, right. So it's
All right, so
Q1.
then I'd be looking for a motion to do the piece around the COLAs. And then next meeting, we'd like to know what the COLA difference to the table is, right? And then the third thing is that knowing that information after the Collins Center study is delivered, then we would make the assessment on the market adjustment.
Yeah, I mean, to Mike's point, we can make it a market adjustment for this population because it's not collectively bargained. We can make that decision. But we'll make that decision with the context of the broader framework of the bigger picture of all the adjustments we are considering. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, so I mean, I'd be happy to leave the like market adjustment for on-call firefighters discussion on, you know, upcoming meeting agenda, that line item, so that we don't lose it.
Yeah.
And then make this COLA adjustment right now. Jeremy's gonna let us know in 5 minutes here that there's a study coming. Yeah, he's already doing the math. And so then that would, I mean, just given the loose time frame of that market adjustment would then come sometime, you know,
I think it's
September-ish probably,
It's the first quarter of this fiscal year, we should be able to make.
before the end of the first quarter.
Yeah.
Yes, I think that's
a fair
reasonable.
timeline. I don't, yeah, there's a couple here, and what I want to do is create or at least present the differential between EMT, paramedic, and base, and have that be reflected in the call rate, like it is here. So I would look to replicate the difference in the percentage-wise in the fire contract, as to what that premium is, and then replicate that here. So I don't know what the vote would look like tonight for a COLA increase. Yeah, so vote next meeting.
Okay.
We'll put,
Because we'd have to have the numbers in there. Okay. And the motion.
the chief and I will have it, and numbers in there.
I know I said go forward, but we have the ability to say retro 7/1 of the fiscal year, something to start the fiscal
Yeah,
year.
sure.
We can put that in the motion, we vote on it.
Yeah.
All right, there was one more thing. Oh, how's this not happen again? How do we make sure that when we're having these discussions about career firefighters, that we're also having pay scale discussions about on-call?
Just has to be on, it's on you and I to have that be part of the budget discussion next time.
Right there. Are there?
I don't think he's gonna forget.
And just a little asterisk, are there other similar style employees around our town that we have missed somehow because they didn't get included in some larger budget discussion? That's just a takeaway for you.
Yeah, the building inspectors, okay,
And
the pump, the plumbing, the gas, the
We
wire.
talked about that last time.
Okay. All right, satisfactory? Okay.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Steve.
Got one more
Always
fire.
informative.
Oh, right, we've got the ambulance, coming back. All right, so, and the ambulance lease that we've talked about many, many times in the past is the machine is here, so the lease, is going to start with this delivery. Going forward, if, you know, there was a lot of discussion about the date it would start and the cost and the amortization, so that's being shown right now. So based on this payment table, we'd be looking for a motion to get this approved.
So yeah, the motion would be to, just because this isn't the lease document, you all determine the need and approve the lease as presented.
Say that again.
So be it resolved that the governing body of the leasee has determined the need for the ambulance and approves the lease as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All right, roll call vote.
Morale, aye.
Chanel, I. Goddard, I.
Brugos, aye.
Right. Thank you. That allows me to sign all this paperwork after the chair signs it, and then it allows Jason to sign the invoices and take delivery.
Cool. All right. Thank you so much for joining us this evening and spending this warm time
It's very hot.
on a Wednesday night. It's getting up to 80s in here.
Apologize to these firefighters that got left out of this. It's not gonna happen again.
Can you send vehicle details on the brush truck and the new ambulance, just from the capital inventory standpoint?
Yep.
Same spreadsheet you sent before, just with new info.
Thank you. Have a great night. All right, Mr. Town Administrator, would you like to
Yeah, I want to make this.
present your report?
We already talked a little bit about, talked about the Collins Center report, so, I've got to follow up, with them on my second round of edits. I will say, just to preface that the assistant town administrator, while in our study, was left out of the overall compensation analysis, there weren't enough comps, specific to what we were trying to do. So my edits right now are getting Collins Center to, while they don't have the quantitative, to kind of have a narrative based around that. So that's what we're trying to work on now. Tell me why that's not true.
A narrative of job skills and tactics, like,
And say,
so you can build a comp.
so they say if there's not a certain number of comps, they don't publish it. And there wasn't. So I want them to talk about, what other types of positions there were, either recommendations to make ours more comparable to somebody else, or what the skill differences are. And if we don't have the quantitative to them.
They won't share the comps that they did find.
Yeah, I said if there's like less than 4, or less than 3, or something like that.
Or something.
They didn't say it that way. I think it's maybe not analytically useful.
Okay.
Um,
Well,
So they
I'd say,
vary so much.
right, that's,
Someone was getting 200 and another person's getting 100, and there's no way to compare those because. the
well,
job
no, there
descriptions
is, but I think if they're saying it's not statistically significant, then they're going too deep into what we need to some extent. I'd still want to see the comps.
I feel like I haven't seen anything yet, but I feel like there's towns our size that just have these multifaceted roles that have that title, and it's hard to pin down.
Right, but we should have, I would love just all the background data for them to filter and not, I mean, if they collected data on our dime, they should share the data.
It might be it's another $500 to get the extra data.
No, my point would be this is, but we should have the opportunity to make inference ourselves.
Yeah, you can,
If it's not
you
your report.
don't have to give us your analysis, just give us the data.
Right, I mean, I'm cool. It's like, you don't feel it's significant, okay, then there's a little subjective analysis.
Let us
we
know
can
the
get out.
conclusions.
So yeah, that's a good point. Website, we talked about 2, and I said that I got pushed back a little bit. I was gonna bring that up here. We brought it up before. Working on some collective purchasing stuff and things like copiers, doing a lot of competitive procurement for the next fiscal year. We had timing from Milford wasn't great. John just left from Highway, but we're continuing on some of our collective purchasing from Milford that they extended, but they didn't extend other parts of it and let us know kind of late in the process. So we're going through our own procurement. One thing that you appointed tonight was John Dudley as Highway Procurement Officer, so he can do all those. We got an appropriation to fix the fire department garage doors. And that's out to bid right now. We have some assessor stuff out to bid, so a lot of work on those. We've got 2 public hearings coming up next week. And I put this on our Facebook a couple hours ago, but town hall, our town departments that are typically closed on Fridays are going to be closed tomorrow in observance of Independence Day. There are some folks who work half-day Fridays, full-day Fridays, and their schedules will vary a little bit. So anyone who's listening to this, if you're trying to conduct business in person in town, make sure you call ahead first, just because the hours will be a little uneven across departments. And then just to wrap it up, we had one, union reach out to us to start, first collective bargaining sessions, which is ambitious, a little early, but I appreciate the attentiveness. So this board has to, once we have the Collins Center, study, present that in an executive session to come up with, remember I've reached out about this, but come up with parameters for the session, for the season of bargaining. And then we'll, as I understand it, this study is not privileged document, right? The public and the unions will get access to it as well. But I want the board to be able to discuss what it means from a management perspective first. So that'll be coming soon. And then it's the first thing on future agenda items, but Katie and I have worked over the past couple of days on compiling everything for folks who want to be reappointed to committees. Because we went through the competitive, open, not necessarily competitive yet, but open process on expiring terms.
It'll be competitive.
So we do have some competitive seats. My anticipation is that we'll get a recommendation from the committee chair on what their sort of things, but it's only ultimately up to the board, if we have 3 people for 2 seats, how you want to handle that.
Yeah, which means some difficult conversations come up.
So that will likely be on the 16th. I believe that's beyond our 45-day period. And then specifically on the ag committee too, getting those appointments on here for everybody. Yeah, that's all I have to say.
So with the committee on the 16th, what will the agenda item be about the committee assignments? What will the discussion?
So we put all the expiring terms, we put out and said, hey, people whose terms are expiring, we want to continue. So it'll be reappointing all those who, there was no other competitive folks who are interested in being in. And then there is at least one where there are more people interested than there are seats available. So that discussion will be, I will invite that committee chair and leave it up to that chair whether he wants the 2 incumbents to come, and then I will invite the 3rd person who wants to.
Are there any positions where no one stepped up and we've got an open spot? You have to find somebody?
I believe there are a few where people don't check their Mendon emails. We haven't gotten a 100% response rate yet, so we're going to do a little bit more outreach. But none in the affirmative saying, no, I do not want this seat yet. So you got one? Okay, let's do that.
All right. Thank you, Jeremy.
I'm sorry, I forgot one actually very important one.
Do it.
We talked about the ADU bylaw, that we got a 17-page decision on. So we're working through that, and that will come to special town meeting in the fall with a revised version. The other bylaw that went through umpteen revisions was the floodplain bylaw. And, we work with people at NEMA and FEMA because the revised floodplain bylaw was necessary to allow people to enroll in the National Flood Insurance Program.
Does FEMA still exist? It hasn't been.
This is part of the complication and what I'm about to tell you. So in our submission of the bylaw, NEMA up to FEMA, it got kicked back for a technical specification that wasn't properly delineated in the bylaw, even though we went through, like I said, many, many levels of review. That means that folks in town are not eligible to continue in the NFIP, the National Flood Insurance Program, as of expiration, I think at the end of July or sometime coming up pretty soon.
For renewal only or?
For renewal, at all.
At all.
There's only one household, one parcel in this program.
Still very impactful for that parcel.
So in order to be able to continue that in that program and renew, we need to pass a compliant bylaw. So the decision is whether to wait until special town meeting or to have a special town meeting to pass a revised bylaw. I learned about this yesterday afternoon.
Is this individual aware? the landowner?
I don't know yet.
So, that's a not for today item that
Certainly.
we gotta talk about next week. I think definitely we gotta reach out to the landowner.
Yeah, I mean, it's,
Can I ask you while we're the mix here, find out if there is a commercial policy, if there's an insurer out there. And what it would cost, because usually the reason you get national flood insurance is either because private insurance is prohibited or you can't get it at all.
yeah, that was about to say, my experience with them up here is that they are the stand-in when there isn't a commercial available.
Well, just.
Yeah.
Well, if you could.
We'll explore it because I'm not familiar.
It's. I would call Cabot Risk. And they can tell you, the ones that.
Yeah, ours.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll do a little bit more work between the town and outreach to the individual. But it is something to contemplate.
Interesting. Okay, thank
Is
you.
there any other potential business we'd bring to a special town meeting in the next 60,
Yeah.
So do we have any other business that we'd pull up from the November? Something to think.
I'm sure, yeah. Of course, all the free cash stuff, of course not, but
I'd like to think of any bylaw stuff.
Yeah,
Maybe there'd be some bylaw stuff ready. We could make it a priority, I guess.
we'd have the gender neutral bylaw in its appropriate form.
I mean, it's a consideration.
Yeah, if we're gonna be there for 10 minutes, we can be there for 12 minutes.
maybe we could get this. The noise.
The noise ordinance. Yeah, I think they're pretty close on that.
And then possibly this. Well, we don't have to adapt, so.
I mean, we used to separate our bylaw at special town meetings from any financials for the sake that when I first go around, just because it was like so much discussion on bylaws, it was easier to do two small ones.
All right, well, save all that creative discussion for next time. I just want to let you know, you all said okay to me being chair. This is what happens. Okay, so highway road maintenance plan. We'll talk to John about where his readiness is on that.
He did tell me that the plan of doing Hartford Ave
Yeah,
was going to be combined with when they do the intersection.
right. I don't know if that's been ironed out. I have seen a lot of,
Yeah, those contractors
just
have been,
recently did the
He told me that
road
2 days
closures.
ago. I asked
Yep.
him 2 days
Okay.
ago.
yeah, that's always been the plan. These contractors have been difficult to line up with. They've moved dates a couple times on us, and the latest Gantt chart that I had, they had already missed their first window.
Okay,
But that's what we're
The
good.
fourth one is not at Plain Street, right?
no, at that corner, at Plain Street and
Yeah.
Talbot Farm.
Those are the contracts. That's what he's trying to line up with.
I thought he was talking about.
At 140.
140, because
That's a different lineup, but we should probably get that.
Yeah. No, it's been my understanding that it was the Plain Street Talbot Farm that we're trying to not have seams in the middle.
That's my understanding.
All right, so inventory of land, that's, we'll put that, actually, that's gonna bubble down to the bottom. Fee structure, bylaw, and then we've talked about that in the past, you just have to get that on a calendar and chat about it in public. Board goal meeting date, did you get, dates from
I
everybody?
got two, I think 2 of you, maybe 3 of you.
All right, so if you're not one of the 2 or 3, please send some dates.
So I'll mesh them together and send them back out to you.
And then we'll bring up the strategy for the Civil War Monument in an upcoming, and I see
try to combine
the highway.
that. Burial ground piece.
Yes, we'll do both that at the same time. And then I saw Elena's hand. There she is. Hi, Elena. What would you like to chat about? Sure.
So I just had a request that when we talk about the strategy for the Civil War Monument, that we include the Historical Commission in that discussion. So
100%.
That's a good point. Let's, we'll remember to do that for the next. We're gonna do that in and I don't know if we'll do it the 16th, but it'll definitely be this summer. So it'll either be the 1st of August or the 16th. We'll see what it looks like. I don't know if we're on the 1st of August. I think that's Friday, but so the first week of August. All right. And then if you, thank you, Mr. Goddard, for sending me your notes on the agenda items. If you have notes on these next agenda items and your priorities and what you'd like to see coming up, please let me know, because it is very helpful to get your feedback on things that you care about. That's how things show up on this agenda. And so that's all I have for tonight. Let's go to next meetings, which are July 16th, 2025, and then whenever the goal setting meeting is, because you're going to get your dates to Jeremy and Katie. And then I would be looking for a motion number 19 to adjourn.
So moved.
Yeah.
Discussion? All those in favor, roll call?
Chanel, I.
So did I.
Brugos, aye.
All right, thank you. The meeting is adjourned at 9:10 p.m. Have an awesome night, everybody. Bye, Elena. Enjoy California.
Aye. Thank you. Bye.
The